Our story begins with a child running, seeming to be running away from someone. He was running so hard he didn't look back, and he looked scared and desperate to get away. And as he ran, we heard a voice. Do you ever get the feeling that you've been through too much things in your life? That you've seen it all? That maybe the world didn't impress you as much as it once did? Or maybe that your life was so different? Well, that's because maybe you've never seen what my life was like, and you've never seen how my life has turned lately. As this voice spoke, we saw that the child continued running until he stopped at a fence that faced the forest. But there was a small opening under the fence. And seeing that opening and still wanting to run away from whoever was chasing him, the little boy went through that fence and ran into the forest. The story I want to tell may seem absurd or maybe silly, but it's a true story, because it happened to me. Focusing on the child, he walked a little way into the forest and hid behind a tree, not only to catch his breath, but to hide from whoever was chasing him. And we see that they were other children, and one of them is very well known to us. Do you think he ran away into the forest? Asked a little boy who was chubby and had wings. I believe so. It's the only way he could have gone to come here. Shall we go after him, Katsuki? Asked another boy, who looked at Katsuki, who had a serious and angry look as he looked at the fence. Shall we go after him, Katsuki? Asked another boy who looked at Katsuki, who had a serious and angry look as he looked at the fence. Katsuki, no, leave him. I believe he learned his lesson today. Let's get out of here, he said as he turned around and walked in the opposite direction, which surprised both boys. Are you sure? I thought we were going to teach that Deku a lesson. Katsuki. And we will as soon as he tries to play hero again, he said as he looked at the two boys. For now, let him hide like a coward. Laughing at what he said, the two boys followed him as they left along with Katsuki. As for the little boy who hid, he sighed in relief when he saw them leave, even though he was still sad about why this happened and what they call him. The little boy who has green hair and freckles on his cheeks was protecting another kid from Katsuki, a boy who has a quirk that allows him to fire explosions. And because of having such powerful power, Katsuki Bakugu let his ego get to his head. And because of having such powerful power, Katsuki Bakugu let his ego get to his head. So much so that he and Katsuki's two friends attacked this boy, who was a little hurt from the explosions and with dirty clothes. Izuku, I better not go home like that, he said when he saw the dirty shirt. So, knowing this forest he's already been to a few times, Izuku walked in a direction where there was a small lake closer. And it didn't take long to reach the place, where there was a small lake with very clean water. And when he got close, Izuku knelt down, and before he thought about cleaning his shirt, he saw the reflection of his face in the water and saw that his face was also dirty because of what happened. And upon seeing this, Izuku got a sad look inside. My life was not so pleasant at first. In fact, I didn't have such a normal childhood, shall we say, because I exist in a world where the majority of the population has powers, but people like me who are quirkless are not well regarded. As the voice spoke, we see that the little boy wet his face with the water of the lake. But no, it's that part of my story where things started to get absurd. As he finished splashing his face, the little boy heard a sound in front of him like someone drinking water from the lake. And as he looked forward, the little boy became wide-eyed. He saw what appeared to be a Dragonidia creature, and it appeared to be a child just like him. Upon seeing this creature, Izuku's mouth dropped open and he stopped moving. But even so, the little dragon soon noticed his presence and stared at the boy, and had no reaction. Upon seeing this creature, Izuku's mouth dropped open and he stopped moving. But even so, the little dragon soon noticed his presence and stared at the boy, and had no reaction. The two stared at each other for a while, without moving or blinking, until Izuku decided to get up slowly, staring and showing his right hand to the dragon, who took 2 steps back when he saw the human's movement. Izuku. Hi, how are you? He asked, trying to communicate with the creature, who was still slowly backing away, and Izuku noticed it. Hey, it's okay. Buddy, I am not going to hurt you. Even saying that, the small creature backed away slowly, and before Izuku could say anything, suddenly the two heard a flapping of wings in the sky. And as he looked up, Izuku's eyes widened as he saw a huge dragon land behind the baby dragon. At the same time he glared at Izuku, not happy at all. Upon seeing that huge dragon, which appeared to be the baby dragon's father, Izuku fell on his butt to the ground as he stared at the huge dragon in fear. Upon seeing that huge dragon, which appeared to be the baby dragon's father, Izuku fell on his butt to the ground as he stared at the huge dragon in fear, while the dragon fixed the little boy with a serious look as he approached him. Izuku, no, 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 please no, I didn't do anything, he shouted as he stood with his arms in front of his face, asking for mercy and fearing for his life. And when the dragon stood in front of the boy, he didn't do anything, just stared at him while he seemed to be analyzing him. And seeing that he wasn't being attacked, even feeling the creature's breathing, Izuku opened his eyes and saw that the dragon was staring him in the eyes. Seeing that Izuku was scared and seeing that he didn't seem like a threat, the dragon simply let out a strong breath through its nostrils and turned around, walking towards the dragon cub, who was staring at Izuku. It was from that day that my life started to change. I was in shock. As for Izuku, he remained seated on the ground as he stared at the huge dragon, surprised that he wasn't attacked. As for the two creatures, the huge dragon pressed his face against the dragon baby, who was happy to see his father. The father dragon soon bent down and allowed the baby to mount on top of him, and so he did. In my world with supernatural powers, I discovered something that I never thought I would see something like this. I never thought would be real. Izuku, what? He asked while still in shock at seeing those creatures. I discovered that in my world there are dragons. Before they left, the two dragons faced Izuku, who was sitting with his mouth open, for the last time before the father dragon spread his huge wings and flapped them to rise and fly in the skies. His wing beats were so strong that it made a small wind hit both Izuku and the surrounding trees. Oh yeah, I forgot to introduce myself, right? Well, my name is Izuku Yagi, and this is the story of when I made a great discovery and a great friend. As the current Izuku narrates, we see that the little one looked up to the skies as he stared at the dragon flying away, in awe as he stood. Izuku, wow. End of soundtrack. End. 053. 10 years later. 10 years had passed since that day, and during that time a lot had happened. And at this very moment we see that Izuku, who is obviously more grown up, was sleeping in his bed until he heard the sound of his alarm clock. I am here. To wake you up I am here. To wake you up I am. What you all see ended up with was nothing more and nothing less than the personalized alarm clock with an All Might action figure on top. And upon hearing the sound of the alarm, Izuku quickly turned off the alarm just before sitting down on his bed. Unlike the Izuku that all of you are used to, this one is a little different. His hair is slightly longer, reaching down to his shoulders. And as he rubbed his hand over his face and yawned, Izuku looked at the calendar on his bedroom wall and smiled. And as he rubbed his hand over his face and yawned, Izuku looked at the calendar on his bedroom wall and smiled. Izuku, hello Friday. My favorite day, he said as he got up. As he got up from bed, Izuku calmly left his room and walked to the bathroom to do his morning hygiene and get ready for another day of school. Yeah, that's me. You can tell I'm a pretty average guy. Literally speaking, compared to what my world has to offer. The narrator Izuku said while our protagonist looked in the mirror while brushing his teeth. But I don't have much to complain about, he said while our Izuku finished brushing his teeth and smiled lightly at the mirror in front of him. I think. Izuku stopped smiling for some reason and went to take a shower. When he finished showering, he dressed in a simple black school uniform. And when he finished getting ready, the boy went down to the bottom floor of the house and walked to the kitchen, where when he got close to the fridge, Izuku saw a note taped to the door, and in it it said, "Sorry I couldn't make you breakfast, I had to leave early. Duty calls me. Again. Dad." Izuku chuckled lightly upon reading this, and opened the fridge door and decided to make his own breakfast. And while he was eating breakfast at the table, Izuku saw on television on the news channel a live broadcast of the new hero known as Mount Lady, saving the day by attacking a huge villain attacking a train station. Izuku, that must have hurt, he said as he continued eating, but at his side was a rather curious notebook. And, let's face it, you already know what this notebook is, right? Upon finishing breakfast and washing the bowls he used to eat, Izuku left his house, locked the door and turned to face the city and the citizens walking and doing their day-to-day things. It was a new day after all. This place is Mizudafu, maybe you already know, but it won't hurt to introduce my city one more time. The narrator Izuku said while our Izuku walked towards the school. This is a fairly large city, and we have everything. Since the quirks came into our lives, whether in our country or others around the world, many people's lives have changed, whether for better or for worse. As our narrator commented, our Izuku continued walking calmly along the sidewalks while we see several civilians from the city of Mizudafu walking or using vehicles such as cars, trucks, and others. But the most striking detail is the appearance of most people. Some looked normal, others not so much, like a policeman who literally had the head of a cat. When quirks have taken over our days, there have been certain types of people. Those who use their powers to facilitate their own work. Delivery, shouted a man who was carrying a box and was in front of a door, which was soon opened, and the delivery man was received by a woman who thanked the delivery man that he had ganguru legs, which allows him to run faster than an ordinary human. We also have those who use their powers for their own benefit. Watch out, shouted a citizen when he saw a car running at high speed, where inside them were bandits who seemed to have stolen some things from some store. They stole my money, shouted the owner of the store, who left angry and desperate. And of course, there are those who use their powers to help. Fear not, citizens, because I am here. Upon hearing that voice, everyone looked up, and at an impressive speed, someone landed on the hood of the car, which not only prevented the bandits, but also made them afraid of who was there. And that someone was smiling even at the bad guys. You were going somewhere besides the jail? He said while all civilians smiled and applauded not only the hero's help, but also for what he represents. You were going somewhere besides the jail? He said while all civilians smiled and applauded not only the hero's help, but also for what he represents. That's my dad. All Might, he's Japan's #1 hero and the symbol of peace. It's said that when he made his debut as a hero, he held down an entire building without too much trouble when he was younger. As the narrator says, we see that Izuku also smiles when he sees how his father acted so quickly in stopping the bad guys and helping the shop owner, who was screaming with joy for good reasons. All Might, on the other hand, was smiling and waving at people. I wanted to be a hero like him, but it was unlikely. The narrator said while Izuku was a little crestfallen and turned and went on his way. I'm part of the minority of the population that doesn't have powers. The non-normal ones, since quirks became the new normal in society. He narrated as Izuku walked past some people who had one thing that demonstrated their quirks. Some had wings, had different skins, or had some animalistic features. I could even brag or be proud of being the son of hero #1, but that's the problem. No one can know about it. It's a very serious secret, and no one but you should know. The narrator said while All Might quickly looked at Izuku and sighed when he saw him walk away, but no one noticed that. But I still don't intend to give up after all. This is my dream, and my life goal, the narrator said while Izuku sighed and raised his head with a determined look. End of soundtrack. Aldera. Arriving at the place he was going, Izuku arrived at a school called Aldera. And upon arriving in the classroom, Izuku is greeted by some looks from other students who kept laughing and making fun of his face. And the reason? Look who decided to show up? The quirkless loser, said one of the students who was saying to their group, who was containing laughter. Look what a pathetic guy, said one of the girls in the classroom. I can't believe he still has the balls to show up here. What an idiot. Izuku didn't say anything. He just ignored everything and sat at his desk. And just as he was about to take the notebook out of his backpack, someone intentionally hit the notebook, causing it to fall to the ground. Katsuki. Good morning, useless Deku. This guy is Katsuki Bakuguru, the most popular guy in my school. He has a power that allows him to release explosions from his hands. In other words, he's the golden boy of this place. Katsuki. What's up? Is there a problem? He asked when he noticed that Izuku didn't say anything, even knowing that Katsuki did that on purpose. Katsuki. What's up? Is there a problem? He asked when he noticed that Izuku didn't say anything, even knowing that Katsuki did that on purpose. Izuku. Good morning to you too, he said as he got up to get his notebook, while everyone in the room laughed at the boy for being pathetic and not having done anything. and I thought he was going to do something, but how ridiculous, laughed one of the students. Loser. Bakugu showed this Deku's place, said one of the girls in the classroom. And when the bell rang, the teacher entered the room. Good morning, my students. I hope you've done your homework like I asked. And Yagi, when the bell rings, it's take your seat. He said that when he saw that Izuku, who picked up the notebook on the floor, was the only one in the room who was out of his seat. Izuku, I am sorry, teacher, he said while the students were holding back their laughter because of this. Go back to your seat, Yagi, he said as he sat down at the table in front of the students. Izuku, yes, sir, he said as he sat down and the students mocked him. I know that's ridiculous, but it happens to people like me, the non-normal ones. I could say I'm used to it, but still, that's no way to treat a person. The narrator said while the teacher was starting to teach. I could even fight back or do something to defend myself, but who do I want to fool? He said while Izuku sighed. Later that day, it was break time, and most of the students went outside to talk or get something to eat. But Izuku decided to go somewhere else, the school's library area. And when passing through the door, we see that the room was very ordinary with many books. And in that room there was only one person. Ah, look who's there. Good morning, Izuku, said the man who seems to be the librarian of the room. This guy is Emmanuel. Out of everyone at my school, for some reason he's the only one who treats me right around here, even though he knows my condition, which makes this place a lot less bad. Emmanuel, do you want the same old book? He asked as he walked over to a shelf of books and picked up one in particular. Izuku, yes, please, he said while sitting at a table. Emmanuel, look, I still don't understand. Out of everyone in this school, you're the only one who reads this, he said while handing a book to Izuku. And it's even weirder since you like things related to heroes. Is there a specific reason why you're reading this? Izuku, no, I just always found the subject of this book quite fascinating and I like things fascinating, he said a little nervous. Emmanuel, fine if you say so, feel free. If you need another book, you know where I am. Have a good reading, he said as he went back to his place and left Izuku alone. Izuku, thank you, Emmanuel. When looking at the book, we finally see what it is about. It was the book about dragons. It seemed to be a very, very old book. When opening the book, Izuku went through some pages, where we could see that they had some other types of dragons with more weird and bizarre appearances than the others. Izuku, come on, what page are you on? He said as he flipped through the few pages he had already read, but he was looking for one in particular. For a pretty old book, you're pretty long. He flipped from page to page as he looked for a specific dragon, and after 2 minutes, he stopped turning a page when he found who he was looking for. Izuku, finally I found you, he said while fixing his gaze on the page that commented on a dragon. Night Fury. So that's your name, huh? Or at least that's their species name. Once he found that page, Izuku spent all this time just reading it. This page that was about the said dragon called Night Fury not only had a good biography explaining about the species, as there was even a well-done drawing about the dragon. It was very similar to those two that Izuku saw 10 years ago. Izuku, so I wasn't the only one who saw them? How did that happen? And why doesn't anyone else know about them? He asked curiously. End of soundtrack. Emmanuel, did you find anything interesting? He asked, still sitting at the table while also reading a book, but he noticed how Izuku was silent on that specific page. Izuku, huh? Oh yeah, but it's not a big deal. I just found it interesting how this book has a lot of content about dragons, he said as he pointed to the book. Emmanuel, including the heroine dragon, Ryukyu? Izuku, no, I didn't find any dragons similar to her transformation, he said before the school bell rang. Oh no, I better go back, he said as he got up and was about to put the book back in its place, but he saw the librarian raise his hand. Emmanuel, if you like this book so much, you can keep it. Izuku, what? Are you sure? He asked in surprise and shock. Emmanuel, yes, since this book arrived last year, no one has dared to read it. Only you. It won't matter if don't have a book that no one reads here. Izuku, I don't know what to say. he said, still surprised but happy about it. Emmanuel, go now before I change my mind and you miss your class, he said while smiling. Hearing that, Izuku got the book in hand, put it in the backpack he took and walked to the door. But before leaving, Izuku looked at the librarian and said, Izuku, thanks a lot, sir, you're awesome, was the only thing he said before leaving and leaving the man alone. Emmanuel, I already told you that you didn't have to call me that. You're welcome, kid, he said as he smiled and went back to reading what he was reading. Later that day, House of the Yagis. As soon as classes were over, Izuku quickly returned home, and when he returned to reading that same page about the Night Fury species, even though he read that page several times. Izuku, so someone has seen you before and for some reason, all of you were overlooked. But why? He asked himself before turning the book over and looking for the author's name, and when he found it. Who is the person who calls himself Hiccup? Before he could question further, he heard the sound of the microwave beeping. And putting the book in his backpack, Izuku walked to the microwave and took out 2 sandwiches from there. With that, he put the sandwiches in a lunchbox, and as soon as he stuffed them into his backpack, the door opened. Tashinori. Phew, finally a little tired, he said as he closed the door. Good afternoon, son. So, remember the secret I told you all? So here's what I said. This is my dad's true form, Tashinori Yagi, which lives up to my last name. Few people know that he is the true All Might. Izuku. Hi Dad, so how was your day? He asked while pulling out a chair for him to sit down. Tashinori. You already know. The usual villains attacking, people screaming my name and some heroes needing my help, he said as Izuku served him a coffee, which he gladly accepted. I also even had to help a heroine who debuted today, Mount Lady. She has, Izuku, a giganticization power. I've seen it, it's a very useful power, but not in all situations since it can get gigantic, which means it can end up causing some. Tashinori. Hey, calm down, I already know where this is going, and I better stop you before you start scaring me, he said while raising his hand. Izuku, sorry Dad. He laughed a little nervously as he walked to the backpack he left on the couch. Tashinori. So, how was your day today, son? His question caught Izuku's attention. I saw you on the way to school. Have you thought about what you want to be in the future? Izuku. So, since you mentioned it, he said while trying to find a way to say something to his father, but he didn't have to. Tashinori. Don't tell me you're thinking of applying to UA. Izuku. So, do you want me to be honest or lie? He asked nervously. Tashinori. My God, Izuku, he said as he rubbed his face with his hand. Izuku. Come on. Dad, it doesn't cost anything to try. I've been watching some self-defense videos and I've been training my body a little. With a little more training, maybe I'll be able to. Tashinori. Son, we already talked about this, he said in a serious tone. Being a hero is not easy, and using my power is the same thing as wearing armor twice of your size. What does it cost you to pursue a profession as a doctor or maybe a teacher? You're good at teaching, aren't you? Izuku. But you've trained your whole life for this and look at you, you're Japan's #1 hero. Tashinori. Yes, but even I who am hero #1 can get hurt like that, he said while showing the wound that was on his abdomen, and it was a pretty ugly wound. If I can take that kind of wound, imagine you. I don't want you to put yourself in danger. Izuku. But Dad. Tashinori. This conversation is over, Izuku. He got up from the chair while looking at Izuku. I'm already tired of talking about it, he said as he sat down again. Izuku. Sai, why don't you give me a chance? To prove I can do it, I bet my mother would be on my side, he said in a low tone, but Tashinori heard it and looked at Izuku. My mom has been gone a long time, and since she has been gone, my dad has been very protective of me. Even too much, the narrator said while Izuku showed regret for having said that, not only regretful but also sad. Izuku. Dad. Izuku stopped talking when Tashinori's cell phone started ringing, and when taking the cell phone in his pocket, the man stood up. Tashinori. I'd better go. There's a problem and they need me, son. I'll try not to take too long. he said as he walked through the back door. But before leaving, he turned to Izuku. Son. Izuku. Izuku just turned and looked at him. Tashinori. Take care, we'll talk later, okay? I'll try not to take too long, was the only thing he said before leaving through the back door. And the only thing Izuku heard besides the door closing and the sound of something or someone passing very fast above the house. Izuku. Okay, he said in a sad tone as he looked at the coffee that Tashinori had. End of soundtrack. Izuku stood there thinking for 5 seconds before looking at the bag he left on the couch, and as he looked at the corner of the book that was showing in the bag, Izuku got a determined look. He took the book once more, opened it on the Night Fury page just to see the drawing that was on that page, and when he looked at the window, Izuku closed the book, put it in his backpack, which he put on his back and left house. And as he left the house, he ran towards the forest again. As he ran, either passing people or crossing the street, we heard our narrator speaking. I never forgot that day. I couldn't forget what I saw, and I didn't want to forget. I spent all this time researching, going back to the place hoping to see them again. I wanted to know who those creatures were. I really wanted to know, although I had many frustrations that I didn't see them again, and my searches that didn't lead me anywhere. I still had hope. I was sure of what I saw, and finally, I had almost certainly when I saw that book. But I wanted to see those dragons with my own eyes one more time. As the narrator spoke, we see that Izuku was running as fast as he could towards the forest next to Mizurufu. It took a while, but he didn't care, until finally he reached the fence that stood in his way into the forest. Although Izuku was out of breath from running, Izuku stepped over the part as he climbed. And when passing through the other side, Izuku looked at the forest and said, Izuku, it's too late to turn back now. It was the only thing he said as he entered deeper into the forest. And finally, it was on this day that my quest arrived. End of soundtrack. As soon as he entered the forest, Izuku walked to the spot where he saw the baby and daddy dragon at last. And then, to get their attention, Izuku grabbed one of the sandwiches he made and dropped it on the floor. And as he did, Izuku walked over to a rock and sat on it, waiting. It's been about 1 hour minutes since Izuku was waiting, and not only was he bored, but he also saw that the sun was going to set soon, and that sandwich was still on the floor, for nothing. Izuku. Sigh, that's great. I came here for nothing again, over and over again and again. And again. He said, upset when he saw that no living thing appeared, obviously no dragon. What am I doing with my life? I get bullied at my school. My dad doesn't listen to me. I wasted a sandwich for nothing, and I'm standing here like an idiot waiting for one. Insert soundtrack. Parabellum. Opening titles. Tyler Bates. I stopped screaming when I heard a roaring sound, and then trees crashing behind him. And as he turned around, Izuku saw something falling close to him. Seeing that, Izuku threw himself to the ground, and that something fell to the ground, right on top of where he left the sandwich. Noting that he wasn't hurt and that the noise was over, Izuku got up from the ground and saw what fell in front of him. And seeing what fell was not something but someone. Izuku. Dragon? He asked with eyes wide open when he saw that one of those dragons, Night Fury, fell in front of him wounded. And this is what happened. This is how I found him again. In a place a little far from the city, we see a forest with mountains around. But what makes this place interesting is the locals, who are dragons. Lots and lots of dragons of different species going back around or walking around or even feeding. And among those dragons, one that was on top of one of the mountains was watching everything around with a serene and calm gaze. This dragon is nothing more and nothing less than the father dragon from before. Not much has changed since that time. And behind him was another dragon, who came out of a cave behind him as he walked towards the father dragon. It was another Night Fury dragon, only female, and appeared to be a mother dragon. Unlike the father, whose eyes are yellow, the mother dragon's eyes are blue. And when she got close to her husband, she sat beside him, making the father dragon notice her presence and smile. Mother dragon. Sound like a question? She communicated to the dragon father as if she was looking for someone. Father dragon. Carefree sound. In a calm and carefree tone, he replied just before the two heard a flutter of wings and looked up. And as they looked up, they saw yet another night fury descending and landing behind them. And this dragon is none other than the baby dragon from before, only much bigger now. And the most interesting detail of this grown-up night fury are his eyes, with the left side of its eye having a blue color and the right having a yellow color. And as soon as he landed behind them, the dragon faced the parents with a smile, while the mother dragon approached her son just to see if he was okay. The father dragon looked at his son with a look as if he was proud and happy. And as soon as he landed behind them, the dragon faced the parents with a smile while the mother dragon approached her son just to see if he was okay. The father dragon looked at his son with a look as if he was proud and happy. Proud that his son has grown up and happy with that vision of his family. As for the dragon son, he approached his father, who returned to face that land full of dragons, and the son did the same. And as soon as the son sat down next to his father, he breathed in fresh air. Dragon father, calling sound, he called for his son without looking at him, and as soon as the son looked at the dragon father, the father simply looked at his son and nodded, which made the son look a little surprised. But before the son could think, the two hear a noise that appears to be from another dragon, but much smaller behind them. And apparently, it was another night fury baby, who walked up to his older brother, who smiled and pressed his face into the little one's face. There are times in our lives when we are so happy with what we have that you wish nothing could change. You want your life to remain the way it always was. Our narrator said while the new baby dragon jumped and spun on the ground, with the clear intention of getting his older brother's attention and wanting to play. And he managed, because the eldest son made his little brother play with his huge tail, which the little one tried to catch. But unfortunately, there is always something or someone in our lives that appears to mess everything up. End of soundtrack. End. 144. Insert soundtrack. Ragnarok Bear McCreary. Until suddenly, out of nowhere, everyone around heard a huge bang along with a tremor that lasted only 2 seconds. And that was enough to make all the dragons aware, scared and worried. Even more so when the father dragon and the eldest son looked up and saw that other dragons were flying away from the direction where that bang came from, and all those dragons looked scared by what happened. Father dragon. Warning sound, he called for mom dragon, and apparently, the father told her to keep an eye on the baby, who looked worried and scared by the view from up there, with all those dragons flying away from the place. The dragon father looked at his eldest son, who nodded, implying that the two were going to that place to check. Then the two spread their wings and flew towards the place where that huge noise was caused, and in the air the two saw that they weren't the only ones who were going there to check. Other dragons of different species were flying along with them to go check and maybe help their leader, which in this case was the Night Fury father. And as they were approaching the place where the bang came from, the only thing they could see was a huge smoke of earth and fire in the air, reaching up to the sky, and that left both the father and the son attentive, although the son is nervous and very worried about that situation. And when they got close and stopped in the air while flapping their wings, the dragons were watching that huge smoke, looking for something that could have caused it. But before anyone did anything, within that smoke the dragons could see a moving figure, and that figure grew bigger and bigger. And what the Night Fury father and son saw left them shocked and horrified. And the only thing we could hear was a www. End of soundtrack. End. 241. I thought that I was the only one. Current time. Back where we left off, we see that Izuku was getting up with his mouth open when he saw who just fell in front of him, and it was one of those Night Fury dragons. However, he was injured and remained lying on the ground, where the only movements he made were when the dragon was breathing, and the sound of its breathing was heard. And upon leaving the state of shock and seeing the state of the dragon, Izuku slowly approached the fallen dragon. Izuku, hello? He tried to communicate by slowly approaching the dragon, who didn't react even after hearing Izuku's voice and footsteps. By standing on the dragon's side, Izuku can see the dragon's wounds. The dragon suffered burns that looked to first degree on his left paw. The side of his face was scratched, bruises, and a small sharp piece of one of the trees was embedded in the side of the dragon's belly. It wasn't very serious, but it shouldn't stay there. Izuku, my god. What happened to you? He asked, worried and shocked by what he saw. It's okay. I'll try to help you, he said while holding that piece of tree that was stuck in the dragon, but when he made a little pull, dragon. Sound of pain. He moaned in pain when he felt that, even though he didn't get up. Izuku, calm down, I'm just gonna take it from you, he said when he finally took that piece of tree off dragon. That when he felt it, he got up screaming in pain. Hey, calm down, calm down, calm down, it's okay. I just want to help you, he said as he threw away that piece of tree. Upon getting up, the dragon tried to fly, but due to pain and fatigue, he could not stay in the air for 2 meters and fell back to the ground. Izuku, this is more serious than I thought, he said while picking up his backpack and walking towards the dragon, who, when he saw Izuku approaching him, he showed his teeth and let out a sound as if he was threatening him. Izuku, okay, okay. Easy, easy there, he said as he left the backpack on the floor while the boy showed his right hand to the dragon. I don't know if you remember me, but know that I want to help you. Saying that, the boy put his hand inside the backpack, even with the dragon suspicious of him, and it didn't take long for the boy to take out what he was looking for. A bandage. Dragon. Suspicious sound. He reacted to looking at that bandage on Izuku's hand. Izuku, that's for your paw, he said while pointing to the dragon's burnt paw. You suffered a first-degree burn. It's not serious, but it needs to be treated, he said as he took a good part of the bandage and wet it in the lake next to them, and as he did so, the boy slowly approached the dragon. And as he stood in front of the dragon, who was staring at Izuku, the boy slowly put the wet bandage on his paw, and when he felt the contact of it on his paw, he complained of pain. Izuku, I know, don't worry, it stings a little at first, but soon it will pass and you'll get better, he said as he wrapped the wet bandage around the dragon's paw, and when he finished doing that, Izuku slowly walked away. There. Dragon. Confused sound, he stared at the bandage wrapped around the paw. Izuku, don't worry, I'll get it off you tomorrow. I recommend you keep wetting your paw so you don't feel the pain of that burn too much, he said while smiling. Now we just need to take care of your other wound. Upon hearing this, the dragon simply put its front in Izuku's path, preventing him from getting close to his other wound. Dragon, warning sound, he said as he narrowed his eyes. Izuku, all right, sorry, but I recommend that you take care of your other wound maybe with, he said while thinking. With a little bit of your fire, your other wound will close little by little. Now as for the remnants of your wounds, well, that takes a little time to heal. Dragon. He didn't make any sound, he just remained silent on the ground, tired and apparently sad. Upon seeing this, Izuku looked at his backpack and remembered something. Izuku, oh wait a minute, he said as he walked towards the backpack, to the dragon's curiosity, and it didn't take long for the boy to get what he was looking for. The other sandwich. You were hungry, buddy? I had made 2 sandwiches, but you ended up squashing it, he said as he approached and offered the sandwich to the dragon. And the only thing the reptile did was sniff the sandwich as the boy got closer. Izuku, that's a tuna sandwich and tuna is fish. From what I've read, you eat fish, don't you? He asked a little nervously as he offered the sandwich to the dragon. Getting hungry and actually smelling the tuna in the sandwich, the dragon opened its mouth and calmly took the sandwich as it ate. Izuku, yeah, that's right. You can eat as much as you like, the sandwich is all yours, he said while smiling as he watched the dragon eat. So you're the baby dragon from before, and by the looks of it you've grown up well. And you've grown up much better than me by the looks of it, he said, mocking himself for the size of the two. He recognized the dragon because of his heterochromia. And apparently the dragon liked it, but the sandwich did not fully feed him. And seeing where the boy got that sandwich from, the dragon looked at Izuku's backpack. Insert soundtrack. Out there, Deborah Lurie. Izuku, oh no. Sorry, I didn't bring more food. It was the only thing I had, he said before looking at the sky, which was already showing to be getting dark. Oh no, I have to go back home before my dad starts to worry and look for me, he said while picking up his backpack and putting it on his back. Izuku, I have to go, but I'll be back tomorrow, I promise, he said as he started to walk away, and the dragon noticed that and just stared at Izuku, who stopped for a moment just to stare at the dragon. Be well, buddy. I'll come back tomorrow as soon as possible. It was the only thing he said before running and leaving, thus leaving the dragon alone, who watches Izuku disappear from his sight. As soon as he disappeared, the dragon looked at his paw where the boy put the bandage and then looked at his other wound that he prevented Izuku from taking care of. I always thought the moment I would run into one of them again, the narrator said while the dragon remembered what Izuku said he should do. Then the creature looked at its other wound and opened his mouth a little, where a little fire came out. And the moment I finally got to see one of them again, I didn't know what to do. The narrator said while we see Izuku jump over the fence that was at the entrance to the forest, and the moment he passed, the boy was looking to where he left. However, I knew what was the right thing to do, he said while Izuku turned around and ran towards home once more, already decided. End of soundtrack. End. 108. Yamanashi. Gran Torino apartment. In an old apartment, small and a little dirty, lived an elderly man who wore a hero's outfit along with a cape on his back. This short elderly man is Gran Torino, and he was sitting in his armchair while eating his sweets while watching television. Gran Torino, hee that's right, Panda, do you think training is easy? Hee good luck, he said while having fun watching a movie. Gran Torino, hee that's right, Panda, do you think training is easy? Hee good luck, he said while having fun watching a movie. As he continued watching, Torino managed to hear the sound of someone landing on top of his apartment. And hearing that and feeling the place shake a little, the old man sighed. And it didn't take long for the person responsible for that noise to come down the stairs to the living room. Toshinori. Sorry for the sudden appearance, master, he said as he wiped his mouth because of the blood that came out. It just… Gran Torino, I know you've exceeded your time limit again, he said without taking his eyes off the television, and his answer made Toshinori scratch his head. Sit there and get some rest? You must have had a busy day. Toshinori. Yeah, a little, he said as he sat on a chair beside him. Gran Torino, so? How's Izuku doing? Oh, he asked, still not taking his eyes off the TV. Toshinori. Huh? He's fine. He's at home right now, he said looking thoughtful, and the old man noticed that when looking at him. Gran Torino. Okay. What's the problem now? Toshinori. What? Gran Torino. When you look like that, it means there's something that's bothering you and you want to talk about it, he said while looking at the man. Speak up, I'm listening. Toshinori. Sigh. The problem is Izuku. He is still insisting on it. He doesn't listen to me and sometimes I don't even know what to do to him, he said while looking down. Gran Torino. Have you thought about starting to listen to him more and maybe give him a chance? Toshinori. Master, I'm serious. Gran Torino. And you think I'm not too? Toshinori. Master, you already know that the world of heroes is too dangerous for him, and even if I let him enroll in the UA, one of the robots might crush him without too many difficulties, and I don't want that for him. Gran Torino. The world itself is already dangerous, Toshinori, whether in the world of heroes or not. And another thing, how do you know that if you don't even give him a chance to prove that he can do it? Toshinori. Master. He was going to say one more thing, but Gran Torino interrupted him by raising his hand. Gran Torino. And don't give me that excuse that you were injured in your fight against All for One. The boy can get strong and know how to defend himself with proper training, and with the right power. Toshinori. I still don't know if I want that for him, he said as he got up from the chair. When I was kid. Gran Torino. Oh no, not again, he said as he kept his hand on the rest and threw himself against the armchair. Toshinori. My father started treating me like an intruder in his own home when he found out I was a quirkless too, he said as he walked behind the Gran Torino, that he was bored with what he was listening to. And then when I grew up, do you know what I decided? Gran Torino. Wow, I have no idea. Tell me, he said pretending to be curious, but clearly he wasn't. Toshinori. I resolved to be a better father than he ever was. Even if I had a quirkless son, I would still be a much better father. I swore that to myself, and I'm fulfilling what I promised. Gran Torino, Sai Tashinori, I'm going to be honest and straightforward with you, he said while looking into the man's eyes. You are indeed a good father. Even after what happened to Inko, you showed that you care a lot about your son. You've demonstrated that you've lived up to what you've promised. Tashinori, but? He asked, making sure it wasn't over. Gran Torino, but right now you're being a jerk. Tashinori, why jerk? For wanting to protect my son? Gran Torino, for preventing him from spreading his own wings and starting to make you proud. Tashinori, but I'm already proud of him. He's smart, he learns fast, he's polite, he's dedicated, and Gran Torino, and he can be much more than that if you give him a chance. Tashinori, but insert soundtrack. Citizens Unite, Tyler Bates. Gran Torino, Tashinori, he just wants to be like you, a hero. Like it or not, you have to let him grow up and follow the path he wants. I know you want to protect him, but if you keep preventing you from following his own goal that he wants, you will lose him forever. Tashinori. Tashinori didn't say anything, he just listened. Gran Torino, give him a chance to make you proud, he said, giving a slight smile. The only thing Tashinori did upon hearing that was sit on the chair and look towards the door of the place. But the words of Gran Torino kept coming to mind. End of soundtrack. House of the Yagis. Outside Izuku and Tashinori's house, we see that the boy finally made it to his house from the front after running a lot, so much so that he stopped for a while to catch his breath. Izuku, at least, I'm running faster than the last few times, he said to himself while breathing, before Izuku could even think about going into the house. Are you okay, Yagi? Asked someone worried. Insert soundtrack. Under the clock tower, Daniel Pemberton. Hearing that voice, Izuku looked to the side and saw none other than his neighbor, a girl his age called Ochako Uraraka, and she was holding 2 small bags with her. This is my neighbor, Ochako Uraraka. This is my neighbor, Ochako Uraraka. She usually lives alone since her parents work a lot, and she manages to take care of herself very well. My father and her parents have known each other since her parents came here, and I and Uraraka, well, we can say that we became good friends, although asterisk fake cough asterisk. Izuku. Hello Uraraka, he said while fixing his own composure. How are you? Ochako. I'm fine. I just bought a few things to eat tonight, she said, showing the 2 shopping bags that were in both her hands. Izuku. Are your parents having dinner with you today? He asked curiously. Ochako. I hope so, I think they'll come here soon. But what about you? You look like you saw something and it got you agitated. Are you okay, Yagi? Izuku. Oh, sure. Sure, I was just doing a little jogging around. Get more speed and do some exercises, he said, disguising his nervousness as he moved his arms. Ochako, with a backpack and all? She asked suspiciously when she saw Izuku's backpack on his back, which made the boy embarrassed. Izuku. Why yeah. I wanted to go harder on my running, so I put this backpack of mine on my back to have, more resistance. That's a tactic I came up with, he said with his hand behind his neck with a little shame, and that in the girl's view was a little funny and cute, so much so that she giggled. Ochako, I see. So I wish you good luck in your training, Yagi, she said with a smile. Izuku, thanks, I think. He said that last part in a whisper. Ochako, do you intend to apply to UA? She asked curiously. Izuku, yeah, that's my intention. Even though my dad doesn't allow it. He said it in a whisper. Chako, what? Izuku. Nothing, it's nothing. The 2 stood in front of each other staring at each other in silence, not knowing what to say, until Izuku decided to say something. Izuku. Okay, I better go inside. I don't want neither me nor you to catch a possible cold out here, he said while pointing to the door of his own house. Chako. Yeah, I better come in too, she said while referring to her house. The 2 walked towards the door of their own houses, But before entering, Izuku wanted to say one more thing, although he was embarrassed. Izuku, Uraraka. She looked at him when she heard him call. In case you feel a little lonely, why you can also come have dinner with me and my father so you don't feel lonely. But of course if you wanna, he said a little embarrassed. The girl upon hearing this was surprised. She didn't expect that. But then she smiled and said, Chaco, I would love to. Maybe one day. Izuku. Great. Great, I'm glad for hear that, he said with a smile. So, have a good night, Urara. He stopped talking when he knocked his face on the door, because he forgot to open it. Ochako. Yagi, are you okay? She asked worried when she saw that, especially when she saw the boy with his hands on his nose. Izuku. Relax, I'm okay, it was nothing. He said with embarrassment as he opened the door. Good night, Uraraka. He said with a smile before entering and closing the door. Chaco hee. Good night, Yagi. She said with a smile as she looked at the door to Izuku's house before opening the door and entering her own house. End of soundtrack. Already inside Izuku's house, the boy was walking to his room, but he was ashamed of himself with what happened. Izuku, good job, Izuku. You made a fool of yourself in front of her, he said upset at himself before lifting his own arm and sniffing himself. Yeah, I'm glad she wasn't so close to me, he said as he walked into his room, and then he was going to take a shower. As soon as he finished showering and changing clothes, we see that the boy was in his room sitting in front of his desk with the book open on the same page of the Night Fury species. He was looking at the drawings that he was pretty sure the author of the book, Hiccup, had drawn. The boy was impressed, not only with the drawing, but with the information that was written on it. Izuku, you seem to have met one of those dragons, Hiccup. I wonder how he got to know one of them, he asked with his hand on his chin. But what he didn't know was that on the other side of his bedroom door, there was Toshinori on the other side. He was there in front of the door about to knock, however. He seemed to be unsure of what to do. He wasn't sure. However, he plucked up courage and knocked lightly on Izuku's bedroom door. Toshinori. Son, can I come in? Hearing that, Izuku closed the book and hid it under the bed. Izuku, yes, Dad, you can come in. Hearing that, Toshinori opened the door. Toshinori. Hi, what are you doing? He asked with the intention of starting a conversation and lightening the mood. Izuku. Ah, no big deal, I was just reading a book, he said as he sat in the chair. Toshinori. Cool. What is this book about? Izuku, about lives before the current century. About things that existed many centuries ago, like some animals. He said, disguising his nervousness a little, which went unnoticed by Toshinori. Toshinori, I get it, like dinosaurs and stuff, right? Izuku, yeah, something like that. Toshinori, is it for some study? Izuku, yes, something like that, and I'm reading and learning some very interesting things. Much more than I thought. Hehe. Toshinori, ho, of course, you've always liked that kind of stuff, like study and learn. You're good at it. If it were me, I'd bang my head on the book just to understand, he said while chuckling. Izuku, oh come on, don't exaggerate. You're not that dumb, Dad. You're just not one of the smartest that I met. His comment made both of them laugh for approximately 6 seconds, which was enough to make the mood between the two better than before. And once the two stopped laughing, the two stared at each other as they straightened their composure. And they didn't say anything else. They just stared at each other. Although Toshinori wanted to say one more thing, but he wasn't able to, because his insecurity and fear spoke louder. Izuku. So, is there anything you want to talk to me about? Toshinori. So, I came here to... He was about to say something, and Izuku was waiting for him to speak. Until... It's no big deal, I just came to tell you that I'm gonna make dinner for us. Do you want to eat katsudon tonight? Izuku. Sure. He said a little disappointed, although he only showed it in his eyes. Toshinori. All right. Izuku. All right. Toshinori. Okay. I'll go down and I'll let you know when dinner is ready. he said as he turned to leave Izuku's room. But before that he turned around and said, "Hey." Izuku looked at him. "I'm proud of you, son," he said with a smile and a raised thumb. Izuku, "Thanks, Dad," he said with just a short smile. Upon hearing that, Toshinori closed Izuku's door and left, thus leaving the boy alone in the room. The boy just sighed and looked at the ceiling of his room, thoughtful. As for Toshinori, he was going down the stairs, until he stopped and lightly tapped his hand on his head. "Toshinori. Sigh, you idiot." It was the only thing he said before going back downstairs. Following day. Forest near to Mizudafu. Today is Saturday, and at this moment, Izuku took advantage of this day to leave as soon as possible just to go see the dragon again. And in the middle of the way, Izuku did some shopping which was just for the dragon. And as soon as Izuku arrived and crossed the fence, he looked at the forest and said, "Izuku, I hope you're still here," he said as he walked towards the place he saw the dragon. And as soon as he arrived at the same place as yesterday, he didn't see the dragon nearby, which made him worried, both for thinking that he left and might not see him again, and for thinking that he came there for nothing more than a few times. So he kept walking and entering the place, looking for the creature. "Izuku, hello? Are you still here, friend? It's me, the guy from yesterday. I'm back, like I promised. Are you there?" he said while looking through the trees, thinking that the dragon was hiding behind them. However, he was as close as he thought. The dragon was behind him, and Izuku noticed it when he heard his footsteps towards him. And when he turned to face the dragon, the boy saw that he had the pupils of his eyes thin, as if he was attentive to whatever Izuku was going to do. "Izuku. Hi, friend," he said, nervous by the way the dragon was staring at him. "You still remember me, right?" he asked with his hands up. Dragon. He just stared at Izuku, who was slowly putting his backpack on the ground. "Izuku, how are your wounds? Has it improved a bit?" he asked while taking something inside the backpack, to the dragon's curiosity. "I brought this for you," he said as he took a fish out of a plastic bag, and that made the dragon come out of the killing position and start to sit up. "Izuku, here, it's all yours," he said as he placed the fish on the ground in front of the dragon. "It was kinda strange to put this in my backpack, but since I figured you were hungry, I didn't think twice before." Insert soundtrack. Forbidden Friendship, John Powell. He stopped talking when he saw the dragon eat the fish quickly, so fast that it made the boy go wide-eyed and open-mouthed as the dragon finished devouring the fish and licking his lips. "Izuku, my goodness. You were really hungry, right?" he chuckled nervously when he saw that. As for the dragon, he approached Izuku, who, upon noticing this, walked away with a few steps backwards. "Izuku, what? Why do you want more?" he asked before falling to the ground and crawling on the ground when he saw the dragon still approaching him. I can get you more if you want. There must be a fishmonger nearby." He stopped talking when he saw the creature roll his eyes, straining his throat, seeming to want to vomit, and when opening his mouth, the dragon vomited half of the fish and left it to Izuku, all drooling. "Izuku, he asked in disgust as the dragon retreated and sat down in front of Izuku. "This is for me?" Dragon. Sound of agreement. The dragon made a sound, half agreeing with Izuku's question, who looked disgusted at the other half of the fish lying on top of him. "Izuku, size okay then, itadakamasu, I guess." It was the only thing he said before eating a piece of that fish, raw, chewed and slobbered. In other words, disgusting. And Izuku was holding back from throwing up that piece, until he shoved that piece down his throat, getting uncomfortable with it. "Izuku, thanks," he said as he returned the piece to the dragon, who simply made a gesture saying that it was all his. Thanks again," he said while making a forced smile. And the dragon, seeing that, he mimicked the boy's smile, showing all his sharp teeth in that smile. And the boy didn't know whether to be scared or confident that the dragon was smiling like that. "Izuku, so," he said as he left the fish on the ground and got up, "how have you been? Did your wounds get better?" he said as he approached the dragon, who, seeing the boy's approach, walked away from him with a few steps. "Hey, It's okay, I just want to help you. Even the boy saying that, the dragon ran to the other side of the place. But when he did, he groaned in pain, making him stop a little and lie down on the ground. And seeing that, the boy understood that the dragon was still feeling a little pain. So, he walked over to the nearby backpack and grabbed something that might be useful, if the dragon wanted it. As for the dragon, he remained lying on the ground before hearing Izuku's footsteps and seeing him sit beside him, with a smile on his face and something in his hands. An ointment. Izuku, this helps with the pain. Well, at least it helps us humans, he said while scratching his head. Dragon. Confused sound, he was confused by what he was saying. Izuku. Anyway, just let me help you. I promise this won't burn and I'll get away from you as soon as I'm done. He said while showing the ointment to the dragon, that even though he didn't know if that would work, he saw no other choice but to lie down and let the boy do what he wants to do. Upon seeing this, Izuku rubbed the ointment on the places where the dragon was in pain, and when he was about to pass next to the dragon's belly, Izuku saw that the wound seemed to have been closed by some fire, and he knew whose it was. Seeing that, Izuku looked at the dragon and smiled before applying the ointment to that wound, even though the dragon complained a little when he felt the boy's touch on that part. Izuku, sorry. And as soon as Izuku finished applying that ointment to the places where the dragon felt pain, he moved away from the dragon, who was lying down, and went to sit on the ground, a little away from the scaly dragon, who was looking at Izuku. And while Izuku seemed to be busy drawing something in his notebook, the dragon looked at his wounds where the boy had applied that ointment, and noticed that the pain was easing, and that made the dragon look surprised at Izuku, not only because of that chemical he didn't know, but because the boy had helped him. Curious, the dragon got up from the ground and walked towards Izuku, who didn't notice the creature's presence. And what the dragon saw impressed him. Izuku was drawing it in his notebook. Dragon. Surprise sound. He said when he saw that drawing, and because of that, Izuku noticed his presence. Izuku. Hi, are you feeling better? Did you like it? He asked, showing the drawing to the dragon, who decided to do the same thing. He ran to a branch of a tree that Izuku plucked from him yesterday, approached the boy, and used the tip of the branch to make a drawing on the ground, while Izuku watched the dragon's attitude and was surprised to see him do that. And as soon as the dragon finished drawing, he let go of that branch, looked at Izuku and smiled, showing his teeth again. And as soon as the dragon finished drawing, he let go of that branch, looked at Izuku and smiled, showing his teeth again. Like this, the drawing the dragon made. It wasn't even a drawing, it was just a bunch of random lines he made on the ground using that branch. But what left Izuku impressed and with a smile on his face was the dragon's intention, and because he tried to do the same thing as the boy. And as he passed those lines on the ground, Izuku looked back and saw the dragon staring at him as the two were facing each other. And as he passed those lines on the ground, Izuku looked back and saw the dragon staring at him as the two were facing each other. Until the boy reached out his right hand to touch the dragon's face, which, upon seeing this, was reluctant. Izuku, it's okay. I won't hurt you, he said as he slowly brought his hand closer to the dragon's face, who closed his eyes and allowed the dragon to place his hand on his face, and that showed what the dragon was showing to feel for Izuku. Trust. Izuku, do you have a name, buddy? His question made the dragon open his eyes. Our chapter begins with our imaginary fanfic camera zooming in through the air towards a glass building on a considerably high hill. Our chapter begins with our imaginary fanfic camera zooming in through the air towards a glass building on a considerably high hill. And with that view, our narrator begins to say, "This place is U.A, the most popular and most respected school in Japan." Yeah, I know. You guys have already know this so well, but I promise I'll be quick and it won't happen again, said the narrator Izuku as the camera approached the UA. This place was responsible for forming many of Japan's most popular heroes, including my father too. Even those who don't want to be heroes go to this place because of the other professions related to the world of heroes. As he spoke, we see every corner of the UA, whether from the outside or inside the building, which was already large, and the outside also had plenty of space. All owned by the UA. Yeah, this place is a dream for many people, and this is where their dream can come true. However, there's only one problem, and that's getting in. When the narrator says this, Our camera pans over the a building and focuses on an area belonging to the school. Inside at that area that appears to be a fake city, we see two people standing in the middle of this simulated city with one of them with a list in hand. And here we see that the two were just watching some robots that were destroying some walls, advancing at high speed through the streets of the fake city, and crossing the buildings of this place. However, they weren't attacking the two men who were nearby, just watching everything these robots were doing. One of these men is Power Loader. Power Loader is a short, skinny man with a very youthful appearance for his advanced age. He has spiky ginger hair, reaching just past his shoulders, and dull blue eyes, as well as a notably large mouth. His hands appear to be the largest part of his body, disproportional to his rather small frame, and, due to his quirk, he has an orange L-shaped piece at the end of each finger. Power Loader, Pointer 3, do your job. Go through the wall as if you were going to attack. Ready? 1, 2, 3, he said aloud, looking at the front of a street, in which one of the walls of the buildings was destroyed by a robot that had a number 3 painted on the metal, which obeyed the man's orders. Yes, wonderful, wonderful, he said, happy with the result. Cementos. That was impressive, Higuri. It's quite a robot. This is Prohero Cementos, who was making notes on a list that was in one of his hands. I'm already imagining the work this will give me, he thought as he looked at the destruction the robots were causing in the fake city, and by the look of the pro hero he looked tired. End of soundtrack. End. 145. Power Loader. That's nothing, you haven't even seen my most glorious creation yet, he said in a cheerful tone as he looked at Cementos. Cementos, sure, the 0-pointer. Listen, making this robot is really necessary, he asked curiously while more of the other robots from other points were commanded to go in certain directions. Power Loader. I don't know, it was orders from our boss. And believe me, making this robot took a lot of work for me, he said in a tired tone when he remembered. Why the question? Cementos. I'm just curious about our boss's intentions. Besides, how will he be able to take on these machines in the practical test? He asked while looking at a 2-point robot that was being taken to a fake city area. Power Loader. Who are you talking about? He asked, curious and suspicious at the same time. Cementos, All Might's son. Power Loader. Oh. Yeah, I don't know what to say. He said to run his hand over his head when remembering Izuku's condition. Do you know if he signed up here? Cementos. The one who has this information is our boss, he said while the two pro-heroes looked back, where the UA. In what appears to be a monitoring room, we see that Nizu is standing, watching through the screens where the various cameras showed the practical test robots being directed and positioned in certain places before being turned off. And behind the chimera, we see that Toshinori had a list in hand. Nizu. The entrance exam will start soon in 2 months. Are all the written tests ready? He asked with his characteristic smile on his face without taking his eyes off the screens. Toshinori. Sure, sir, all copied and saved on the day of exam. Nizu. Great, and our enrollment? How many candidates do we have? Toshinori. We have many names, sir. Many students from different schools have applied to U.A, mainly to apply for the hero course, he said as he switched from paper to paper in his hands when he saw several names of young people who signed up for the exam. Well, if you'll allow me, sir, I'll see and ask Power Loader and Cementos how they are doing with the practical tests, he said before bowing and turning around, about to leave the room. But Nizu, has the list of candidates people been updated? He asked, looking at Toshinori, who was confused by the chimera's question as he turned around. Toshinori. I don't understand, sir. Nizu. I took a look at the list of applicants, and I saw that your son's name is also on the list of applicants. Upon saying that information, Toshinori was shocked and speechless. Toshinori. Huh? What? When did he? But I told him not to. Oh my God, he said, trying to digest what he just heard, but how he fumbled all over the words. All he did was sigh and put his hand to his face. What do I do with this boy? Nizu. It's simple. Let him apply here. His response made Toshinori look at a chimera, who was still smiling. Toshinori. But sir, I've already said several times. My son has no powers and I won't allow him to. Nizu, Tashinori, Tashinori, Tashinori. He interrupted him by raising his paw and walking towards the blond man. Quirkless or not, everyone can enroll at U.A and have their place, whether on the hero course or not, he said as he stopped in front of Tashinori before jumping, grabbing the man's shirt and climbing onto Tashinori's shoulder, who seemed to be used to it. Why do you think I removed that rule that Quirkless can't sign up? Everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves, right? Tashinori, but the person runs the risk of injury or possibly death, he said in a serious tone. Nizu, so much negativity you have. Where's your optimistic and hopeful side? Huh? He asked as he grabbed the man's face and made him look through his eyes. Look, it's okay to worry, especially about your son. But think with me. If he knows you're going to remove him from the U.A entrance exam application, that will make him distance himself more and more from you, he said before jumping back to the ground. Tashinori. So, do you want me to allow him to take the risk of entering the hero course? Nizu, not necessarily in the hero course. What I want to tell you is, we can allow him to enter the other courses, that way he can enter U.A and have his place here and have less risk of getting hurt. And you, much less worried. He can like being on the support course, wouldn't you agree? He asked with a smile on his face before walking to the door and leaving the room, leaving Tashinori alone. Tashinori, because of Nizu's words that made the man put his hand on his chin and look at the monitoring screens, seeing the meaning in Chimera's words. Forest near Muzutafu. Back to the same place where the dragon is hiding, we see that it is lying on the ground, having a good sleeping. Even one of his ears heard a noise, which made the dragon open his eyes and lift his head from the ground. And the one who was there was none other than Izuku, who had his backpack on his back and a bag in his hand. Izuku. Hi. Buddy, it's me again. He waved with a smile on his face as he approached the dragon, who, upon seeing Izuku, got up from the ground and stretched a little due to the nap he took. Oh, I am sorry for disturb your nap. But on the other hand, I brought you more food. Are you hungry, buddy? He asked as he took out 2 fish that were in the bag that was in his hands and left them in front of the dragon. Dragon, happy grunt. Obviously, upon seeing those fish, the dragon got closer to Izuku and ate the fish that were on the ground, and it looked like he was enjoying it. And that made the boy happy. Izuku, looks like I made the right choice in bringing you more food, he said when he saw the dragon licking his lips after that quick meal. Well, since you're well fed, time to see how your wounds are again. Could you lift your paw? Upon hearing that request, the dragon sat on the ground and raised the paw that was bandaged, allowing Izuku to examine it, and so he did. And as you can see, as the week went by, Izuku discovered that Night Fury was understanding him, either through the boy's words or gestures. And as you guys can see, the dragon started letting the green-haired boy take care of his injuries, and as a bonus, the dragon received food every time Izuku came to see him. And at this moment, we see that Izuku has removed the bandages covering the dragon's injured paw. Insert soundtrack. The Going Merry One Piece live action. Izuku. That's a good sign. Looks like your paw won't take long to get better, he said as he took another bandage and filled it with water. Dragon. Complaining grunt. The dragon was apparently complaining when he saw the other bandage that Izuku was going to cover on his paw. Izuku, I know it's boring to use this, but I promise you, this will be the last time you use this. And after that, you won't need to use it anymore and it will get better, he said as he wrapped the band around the dragon's paw, who had a look on his face that he didn't like that. Now I need to see your other wound. Can you lift your wing, please? Upon hearing that, the dragon did as Izuku asked, thus allowing the boy to look and analyze the creature's other wound while he had the ointment in hand. Izuku, yeah. This is going to take a while to heal, he said, scratching his head when he saw the wound on the dragon's belly, who looked at Izuku when he heard what he said. Don't worry, your wound is improving, but it's still not 100% recovered yet, he said as he rubbed that ointment on the dragon's other wound, which let out a slight grunt of pain, and Izuku noticed that. And to distract the dragon, Izuku decided to say something. Listen, buddy, I was wondering, can I give you a name? Dragon. Curious grunt. He asked when he heard that question from Izuku, who finished applying the ointment to the dragon's wound and stood in front of him. Izuku, it's just, we've known each other for a week and it's kind of weird just referring to you as buddy all the time without you having a name. Dragon. The dragon didn't utter a sound. He just quickly licked his lips because of an itch he felt while he stared at Izuku. The dragon didn't utter a sound. He just quickly licked his lips because of an itch he felt while he stared at Izuku. Izuku. I spent the whole week thinking of a good name for you. It was difficult as there are so many names to choose from, but I didn't want it to be just any. But finally, I found it. He said with his hand on his chin while his back was to the dragon. You're big, intimidating, scary when you want to be, and the scar on your face gives you a brave face, he said as he turned to the dragon, who listened to everything Izuku said. What do you think if I call you Fury? He asked with a smile as he looked at the dragon's face. The dragon, who was now named as Fury, showed surprise upon hearing that, and after that he did was stand with his head looking up, staring at the skies while Izuku glared at him. He even looked where Fury was looking, but there was nothing, so he assumed it was something else. Izuku. Fury. Is everything okay? He asked worriedly. Fury opened his mouth, his eyes were half closed, and he let out a quick sneeze, thus leaving him relieved. And after that, he returned to face Izuku, who looked like an idiot for not having realized that and for having worried for nothing. Izuku. Never mind. Forget it, he said with a comical drop of sweat coming out of his head, while Fury walked to Izuku's backpack that was on the ground and the boy noticed. End of soundtrack. The boy saw that the dragon came close to his backpack while he smelled it and analyzed it. Seeing that, Izuku already suspected what the dragon was looking for. Izuku. That's just my backpack, Fury. There's no food in there, he said when he got close to both his backpack and the dragon's side, that he was still curious about what was inside. Do you want to see what I have in here? He asked as he crouched down where his backpack was and opened it. And what Fury saw was just some notebooks, a pencil case and a book, in which Izuku took it, opened it and flipped through the pages to look for a specific one, and that made the dragon curious. Until Izuku found the page he was looking for and turned it to Fury, who looked at the open page of the book that was about the Night Fury. Izuku. This book has a lot information about your species, including this drawing about you. And look, this book is quite old, so that means that I wasn't the only one who saw you, a Night Fury like you. Oh, and this book not only has information and drawings about the Night Fury, but also about other dragon species here, he said as he stood next to Fury, who was surprised by that information before Izuku turned to some pages that showed and commented on other dragons. You've already met these species? Fury. Grunt of agreement, he said when he saw one of the pages that showed some drawings of other dragons. Izuku. I suppose that's a yes, he said as he returned his focus to the book. The name of the author of this book was called Hiccup, and for all the information that this book has, he must have known several of these dragons. Is it possible that some of these species are still alive like yours, Fury? Oh, and by the way, and your family? He asked curiously, but his question left the dragon crestfallen and with a sad look. Fury? Sad grunt? He made a sound that sounded very sad while looking at the sky, and upon seeing that look and remembering Fury's injuries, Izuku already guessed the reason for this behavior. Izuku. Good job, you idiot, you have now made him sad, he thought, irritated with himself for asking that question, until he thought of a way to cheer up the dragon and keep him distracted from that. Then he closed the book, put it in his backpack and caught the dragon's attention by walking beside him. Izuku, listen, buddy, I may have no idea what happened, but don't worry. Soon your wounds will heal, and you'll be able to fly without too much trouble, he said with a smile on his face as he stayed beside Fury, who was sitting on the floor while listening and looking at the boy, who was trying to cheer him up. I promise I'll make sure you're okay, deal? He asked while scratching the back of the dragon's neck, who was wide-eyed at first, but then he closed his eyes and apparently was enjoying it, and what made it clearer was the sound he made. It sounded like a purring cat. A huge, ferocious cat. Izuku. Yeah, apparently Hiccup has studied these dragons so well. I never thought scratching one would make him so happy. Thanks for sharing this, Hiccup, he thought with a smile on his face as he continued scratching the dragon, who was enjoying the way Izuku was scratching him, until When the boy scratched the front of the dragon's neck, Fury threw himself to the ground, happy and letting out a sound that sounded like a light laugh. "My goodness, it really worked," he said in surprise as he looked down at his own hand. Suddenly, the cell phone that was in the boy's pocket started to make a notification sound, which not only caught his attention, but Fury's as well, who got up from the floor. As for Izuku, he picked up his cell phone and saw that he received a message from his father which said, "Son, could you come over here as soon as possible? I need to talk to you." Insert soundtrack. Not So Fireproof, John Powell. Izuku, "Oh boy, I don't have a good feeling about this," he said, a little nervous when reading that message, until he put his cell phone in his pocket and looked at Fury. "I'm sorry, buddy, it's my dad. He's calling me and I don't want to worry him so much. He always did," he said as he walked towards the backpack and put it on his back, and the bag from before that had the fish. He took it and crushed it. "I have to go, but I promise I'll be back here as soon as I can." As he said that, he turned and walked to the same path that took him out of the forest. There was just one thing. Izuku looked back and saw Fury was following him. "Izuku, wait, no, Fury, what you doing? You can't come with me. People will see you," he said as he stood in front of the dragon and showed his hands to stop him from following him. Fury, confused grunt. He asked as he stood still when he saw the boy preventing him from following. "Izuku, people can't see you. If that happens, many may not understand very well," he said worriedly while looking at the path he always took to enter and leave the place, until the boy put his hand on his chin to think, and then he looked at the dragon and asked, "Listen, buddy, it's quite possible that other people might show up here or pass by. If you see other people and I'm not around, what are you going to do?" Fury, threatening growl. He looked forward and made a sound like he was threatening someone. Izuku, "Yeah, that's be pretty scary to do. But no, I want you to try something different." Izuku, "Yeah, that's be pretty scary to do. But no, I want you to try something different. We can use that threatening face of yours as the last option," he said, a little nervous and a little intimidated by the face the dragon made. And the dragon stopped pretending to be furious and paid attention to Izuku's words. "Fury, he asked when he heard that because he was confused with what the boy wanted. "Izuku, let's assume that I'm not me, but that I'm another strange person who's passing by and doesn't know anything about what's around him," he said while pretending to be walking by moving his legs, but in the opposite direction. "And so that I can't see you, what will you have to do?" he asked while looking at Fury. Upon hearing that question, the dragon was thoughtful at first, but it didn't take long for him to understand what Izuku wanted. So Fury ran behind one of the rocks he had nearby and stayed behind it, trying to hide. The problem was that Fury covered his body, but didn't cover his tail or his wings. "Izuku, Fury, I can still see you?" The dragon lifted his head from the rock when he heard the boy's scream. "Sigh, this is going to be a little more difficult than I thought." That was the only thing he said before walking towards the dragon. End of soundtrack. Yagi Family House. Inside the Yagi family home, we see that Toshinori was sitting at the table with a cup of tea in his hands. He had been waiting for Izuku for about 30 minutes, and he was about to call his son's cell phone to see if he was okay or if he was on his way home. But before he could do that, he heard the door open and Izuku appeared, who seemed to have come running. "Izuku, hi. Dad, sorry I am late," he said as he closed the door while catching his breath. "Toshinori, where did you run from?" he asked curiously. "Izuku, I came from the library," he said, disguising his nervousness. "Anyway, what happened? Why did you call me?" he said as he got closer to Toshinori and with the clear intention of changing the subject. Toshinori just got up from his chair, faced Izuku with a serious look and said, "Toshinori, I already know everything." Izuku, wait, what? he asked in shock. "What are you talking about?" Toshinori, "How long were you going to hide this from me and not tell me? Did you really think you were going to hide this from me forever?" he asked as he stood with his arms crossed, and that question made Izuku swallow his saliva. "Izuku, how long have you known this?" Toshinori, "I found out today, that's why I called you here, to talk about your application to UA." Izuku, "Huh? He was surprised by what he just heard. Wait a minute. Is that what you were talking about? Tashinori. Of course, what else would I be talking about? He asked, confused and curious. Izuku. Nothing, it's nothing. It's just that If on the one hand Izuku was relieved, on the other hand he was shocked again and defeated when he remembered the other thing Tashinori just said. Oh my god. My application at UA. He said while putting his hand on his face. Look, Dad. I'm sorry, I really wanted to tell you. But I didn't know how to tell you this. And I was thinking about the right time to tell you. But I didn't want you to stop me. I know you're mad at me, but… Tashinori, no, I'm not mad. Izuku, huh? Izuku stopped talking when he heard that. Excuse me, did you say you're not mad? He asked in surprise. Tashinori. Sai, I should have already suspected that you would do something like that. After all, you are as stubborn as me. More than I thought, he said while massaging the back of her neck. I was in disbelief at first when I found out about this. But after talking to my boss, I decided to allow you to apply to UA, he said with a slight smile on his face, and that left Izuku with his mouth open. Izuku, are you really serious? Dad, I don't know what to say. He was happy with what he heard that he almost became emotional. I guarantee you, I won't disappoint you by signing up for the hero course. Tashinori. Hey. Wait a minute, big boy. He calmed Izuku's temper by showing his hands. I didn't say that you will apply in the hero course. I only allowed you to apply in the U.A to enter the other courses. Insert soundtrack. Mukosei Anguish. Boku no Hero soundtrack. Izuku. Was that it? He asked, feeling disappointed. Tashinori. Of course, and look on the bright side. Son, the other courses have a lot of interesting things to learn. There were people who managed to succeed in life just by taking the general studies course at U.A, he said, wanting to cheer up Izuku by talking about the advantages of the other courses. And let's just say that this wasn't working very well. However, Tashinori didn't notice that. And there's also the business course, which a lot of people don't appreciate, but they help a lot with merchandising, especially for heroes. Izuku. Yeah, I know that, he said without enthusiasm, but Tashinori didn't notice. Tashinori, but it keeps getting better. Wait to see what we have in the support course, and I believe this is the perfect place for you, as smart as you are. I believe you will be able to help many heroes with their costumes. Wow, just imagining that must give you a strong feeling, right, son? He said somewhat excitedly while giving Izuku a light punch on the shoulder. Izuku, yeah, I think so. Tashinori. He. He let out a laugh to make the mood between the two better, but seeing that didn't cheer up Izuku, Tashinori decided to change the subject. Anyway, you must be tired now. Do you feel like ordering a pizza today? I can order your favorite, what do you think? Izuku. Izuku was serious and a little downcast. Tashinori. Son? He asked worriedly when he saw Izuku's expression, which when he heard Tashinori, he disguised his expression. Izuku. Of course, yes. I would love to, he said as he passed Tashinori and walked to the stairs. I am going to take a shower. That was the only thing he said before going up the stairs and leaving Tashinori alone in the living room. As for the man, he remained silent as he watched Izuku rise from his vision before sitting down in the chair and sighing. Tashinori. I miss you, Inko, he said in a sad tone while looking at one of the pictures he had of him and the woman with green hair called Inko on the wall. What would you do in my place? End of soundtrack. The next day. Insert soundtrack. This spark in you, Daniel Pemberton. Izuku. Can you believe that? He asked while focusing on a pebble in the lake. And he asked this question to Fury, who was lying on top of that rock. I finally thought my dad would give me a chance the moment he said I can apply to UA. But not the hero course. Ugh. He grunted in frustration as he threw another pebble into the lake. Fury, yawn sound, he yawned as he watched and listened to everything Izuku said. Izuku. I know I'm a quirkless, but come on, I can still prove my worth if I at least try. It doesn't hurt to try. But he apparently doesn't understand that, he said upset as he threw another pebble into the lake. You know what I think every time my father stops me from doing something? Son, I know that there are things you want to do, but know that you don't have powers, so you are fragile and the world of heroes is too dangerous for you. He said while imitating Tashinori's manner and voice, which was not so identified. I know that's not exactly what he says, but it seems to me, he said while throwing another pebble into the lake, but with more force. Fury, call growl. Hearing Fury's call, Izuku looked at him and saw that the dragon gave a disapproving look at Izuku's behavior. Izuku, don't get me wrong, buddy. I love my dad and I'm grateful for what he's already done for me. I just wanted he let me be like just him, he said as he got up from the floor. After what happened to my mother, my father became very protective of me. He tried in many ways to make me forget about the world of heroes. I understand his concern, but I just wanted him to let me try, to show him what I can do, he said with a melancholic look as he looked at the backpack that was leaning against the rock that Fury was on top of. But after staring at the backpack for a while, Izuku stopped his melancholy look and started to look determined. He walked to his backpack, opened it and took out his notebook. Izuku, wait, I can still try. Fury. Confused growl, he asked curiously as he got down from the rock and faced Izuku. Izuku. Fury, maybe this is the opportunity one wanted, maybe. This could be my chance to prove myself, he said while having a smile on his face. I only have 2 months until the entrance exam begins, and until then, I will continue training nonstop until that day comes, he said with a determined look while not removing the smile on his face. Fury, you're a genius. Fury. Surprised growl. Izuku. Thanks, buddy, you're the best, he said as he hugged the dragon, who was surprised by Izuku's sudden attitude, who noticed what he had done and separated from the dragon, who was still surprised by Izuku's embrace. Sorry, I got a little carried away. But anyway, I don't have any more time to waste, he said as he walked a little ahead while the dragon stared at him. It's time, buddy. It's time. Tio embraced this opportunity, he shouted determinedly and smiling with his fist raised. Tio embraced this opportunity, he shouted determinedly and smiling with his fist raised. End of soundtrack. Izuku. Yeah, I have my opportunity. I have my opportunity, uhu. He stood celebrating with his fists in the air as he ran around. Fury. As for the dragon, he just watched it with no reaction, but the only thing he thought was, is he okay? The morning sun filtered through the treetops. The air was fresh as Izuku dropped his backpack from his shoulders, looking around until he spotted Fury lazily resting in the shade of a tree. The creature's eyes opened automatically upon hearing 2 fish being tossed onto the ground in front of him, making him forget his laziness, stand up, and eat quickly, but not before noticing and observing the boy with curiosity. Izuku himself held a notebook in his hands, with a page titled 2-month training, and from what we can see, he had made a long list. Izuku, okay, that's it, he said, closing the notebook. It's all or nothing. Izuku started with stretches, his muscles tightening under the strain of movement. Then he moved on to push-ups, his hands pressing firmly against the ground. With each descent, sweat began to form on his forehead as he breathed in and out, while Fury watched from his lying position, his head resting on his paws. When Izuku transitioned to running, circling around the clearing where Fury was, the dragon merely turned his head, tracking the boy's movements. The rhythmic sound of Izuku's footsteps could be heard as he picked up the pace, his chest burning with the effort. During a break after a few minutes of training, Izuku sat on a nearby rock, pulling a sandwich from his backpack. His phone in hand displayed martial arts videos. His eyes were fixed on the screen, carefully analyzing each movement. Fury, curious, slowly approached, his gaze shifting between Izuku's snack and the phone screen. Confused by the device and what was playing on it, the dragon tilted his head while looking at the boy with an expression that seemed almost interested. During classes at Aldera, Izuku maintained absolute focus on his studies. His eyes were attentive to the blackboard, his notebook filled with quick notes, and even when the bell signaled the end of classes, he remained absorbed in the books he had borrowed from the library, diving into information beyond the school curriculum. On weekends, even before 9 in the morning, Izuku was already up, leaving home with quick steps and his backpack in tow. Tashinori. You're leaving already? He asked while standing by the oven, seemingly preparing breakfast. Izuku. I'm heading to the library to study more. Bye, Dad. That was all he said before leaving and shutting the door. Tashinori. Already? He questioned, raising an eyebrow. Outside, Izuku ran excitedly down the street, unaware of the curious gaze of Ochako, who had just stepped out of her house and watched him. She couldn't help but follow his figure as he disappeared into the distance. Back in the forest, Izuku was in the middle of a series of push-ups as usual when he suddenly felt a sudden weight on his back. He looked to the side and saw Fury's massive paw pressing down on him, as if the dragon was trying to make the exercise more difficult. Izuku smiled, accepting the extra challenge by refusing to stop, which seemed to satisfy Fury as he kept his paw firmly in place, his eyes fixed on the boy's effort. During the next run, Izuku focused on maintaining his pace, but suddenly, he heard the sound of Fury's heavy paws approaching from behind. Before he could react, the dragon effortlessly overtook him, running with surprising agility for a creature of his size. Panting, Izuku understood the message. Fury wasn't just there to participate, the dragon was pushing him to surpass his limits. To go faster, this made Izuku not only furrow his brow but also pick up the pace, his heart pounding in his chest, determined to catch up to his new training partner, who was waiting for him to continue and push him beyond his limits. Later, Izuku was punching the trunk of a tree, his fists wrapped in bandages to lessen the pain. The impact reverberated through his bones, but he kept going, focused on increasing the power of his blows. Fury watched closely until, without warning, he turned to another fallen tree nearby and, with a swift motion, he used his paw and claws, causing deep damage to the wood. Izuku stood still for a moment, surprised by the dragon's sheer strength. After a brief pause, his eyes lowered to Fury's paw, and an idea began to form in his mind. That night, in the silence of his room, Izuku worked in secret. Tools were scattered across his small desk, pieces of metal and wires mixed in with his notebook and the dragon book. Izuku was apparently creating metal gloves, with clawed fingers directly inspired by Fury's paws. The metallic sheen reflected under the desk lamp as Izuku adjusted the final details, testing the material's resistance. The next day, back in the forest, Izuku put on his newly created gloves and approached a tree trunk. With a single strike, the wood gave way under the concentrated force, cracking easily. No pain reverberated through his fists, only the solid sensation of impact. Izuku, yes, he shouted with his fist raised as Fury, watching closely, lifted his head curiously. Looking at Izuku's hands, the dragon glanced at his own paws, then back at Izuku's glove, twice, recognizing the inspiration. Izuku didn't miss this reaction and noticed the dragon's look. Izuku, so what do you think? Pretty cool, right? Upon hearing that question, Fury only grinned while sitting on the ground, before spitting a burst of fire toward a nearby rock, causing considerable damage. This action made the dragon puff out his chest, satisfied with his display, while Izuku watched in shock. However, his eyes were saying one thing: a new idea. That night, once again, Izuku was in his room, this time working with materials he had discreetly taken from his father's private office. They were pieces of equipment designed by David, which Tashinori barely used anymore. Izuku was crafting small fire bombs, adjusting the potency to make them explosive enough but still controllable. Back in the forest, Fury was drinking water calmly from the lake when a loud boom echoed through the clearing. The dragon quickly lifted his head, eyes wide as he saw a rock blown to pieces. Izuku stood there, holding a small bag over his shoulder, filled with the bombs he had created. He tested another one, aiming at the same tree trunk from before, and the explosion rang out, displaying its power. Finally, he tossed one of the bombs into the lake, causing a splash that wet Fury's face. The dragon blinked in surprise, shook his head to remove the water, and looked at Izuku, who was smiling confidently. Izuku, what do you think now, huh? Fury. Hey, he let out a deep sound, something between a purr and a muffled chuckle, as if saying, show off. Training continued. Izuku struggled through sit-ups, sweat dripping down his face and torso, while Fury firmly held his feet with his paws. During push-ups, the dragon pressed his paw on Izuku's back to increase resistance, making the boy question whether that was necessary or not. For target practice with the bombs, Fury picked up branches and stones with his mouth, tossing them into the air for Izuku to try hitting. At first, Izuku missed multiple times, causing the bombs to fall into the water or the ground, his frustration growing with each failure. But when Fury threw another stone, Izuku took a deep breath, threw the bomb, and finally hit it. The explosion in midair made him shout with joy. Izuku, yes, I did it. He was so happy with this small victory that he enthusiastically patted Fury on the back. Not quite understanding, the dragon returned the gesture, but with too much strength, knocking Izuku to the ground. Fury stared at him, concerned. I'm okay, was all Izuku said, remaining on the ground. During the final sprint of the day, Izuku set up his phone on a rock, the timer ready to track his time. Fury stood further ahead, marking the finish line with his presence. The whistle blew, and Izuku took off, lungs burning, legs moving quickly. When he finally crossed the finish line, he stopped beside Fury, panting heavily. He glanced at his phone while catching his breath, and his eyes widened at the new record beating his previous time. A triumphant shout escaped his lips, adrenaline rushing through his veins as he jumped with his fist raised. Izuku, that's it, come here. Buddy, he shouted, turning to Fury with a smile, raising his hand for a high five. Fury, understanding the gesture, lifted his massive paw to do the same. But at the last second, no, never mind. I'm good. Remembering the earlier slap, he laughed nervously and pulled his hand back. His words made Fury tilt his head curiously before letting out a deep sound, almost like a laugh, while Izuku collapsed onto the ground, satisfied with his progress. It was something small but meaningful. It was something especially for someone like him, a quirkless boy, determined to face what lay ahead. End of music. Yagi Residence. Time: 7 p.m. The night was calm, with a gentle breeze blowing through the silent streets of the neighborhood. Izuku walked toward his house, feeling the exhaustion in his muscles after another day of training. He needed to rest, and luckily, his father was probably out doing more hero work before coming home, making it easier for Izuku to avoid questions, especially since tomorrow was the UA entrance exam, and he couldn't afford to be exhausted. As he reached his house just about to enter, a familiar voice called his name. Chaco, Yagi. Izuku stopped in his tracks, his heart skipping a beat upon hearing that soft voice. He turned and looked toward the house next door, where Ochako was leaning against the window, smiling warmly at him. Izuku, Uraraka. Hi, he greeted her, raising his hand in a wave. Chaco, I thought it was you. I saw you coming and wanted to say hi. She rested her arms on the window, leaning forward slightly. Izuku felt his cheeks heat up at that. Even though they'd been neighbors for a while, he still got nervous whenever they talked, especially when it was something unexpected. Izuku. Oh what a coincidence, I was just getting home. Chaco, really? She rested her face on her hand. To be honest, I've seen you running out of your house several times lately. Where were you rushing off to? Izuku swallowed hard. He knew someone in the neighborhood might notice his constant running, but he never imagined Ochako would be the one paying attention. His face turned a little red. Izuku, well, I was training, of course. He laughed awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. I'm preparing for tomorrow's entrance exam, and I met a friend who's been helping me during this time. Ochako, oh, you've been training too? She seemed both pleased and intrigued. That's great, you always seemed really determined to me. Izuku, you noticed me? Izuku was a bit surprised by the comment. Did he seem determined to her? That gave him a small sense of pride. Ochako, it's kinda hard not to, especially the way you run. Yeah, tell me about it, said the narrator Izuku, while the present Izuku got a little nervous at the comment before quickly changing the subject. Izuku, what about you? Are you excited for tomorrow? Chaco, oh, totally. She let out a sigh, resting her hands on the window. I'm excited, but I have to admit I'm a little nervous too. The UA exam is way tougher than the other hero schools, you know? Izuku, yeah, I read a lot about that. The acceptance rate is way lower compared to other schools. He nodded, feeling a bit of anxiety as he said that. But on the other hand, that just means whoever gets in really deserves to be there. He said optimistically, which made Ochako smile. Chaco, yeah, I guess that's true. A brief silence settled between them. They both looked up at the starry sky, lost in their own thoughts, until Ochako broke the quiet. Ochako, hey Yagi, what are your expectations? Her question left Izuku confused. Izuku, huh? Ochako, what do you expect after the exam? What do you want to achieve as a UA student? Izuku hesitated at first. He had never actually put that answer into words. But before he could say anything, Ochako continued. Insert soundtrack. The Cove, John Powell. Ochako, I've thought a lot about it. I think I want to be a great rescue hero. I've always admired heroes who do that kind of work, like 13 they save so many lives, you know? She said with a gentle smile on her face as Izuku listened attentively, impressed by her sincerity. And I hope that when I become a hero, I can help my parents. They deserve more peace after working so hard for me. She smiled a little more but looked away, seeming a bit embarrassed. But anyway, what about you? She asked, curious. Izuku remained silent for a moment. He knew the answer, but it was hard to put into words. Izuku, He clenched his fists slightly, looking at the ground. I want recognition. His answer intrigued Ochako. I want to be someone in life. I want to be recognized for my efforts, for my actions. To be honest, being a hero isn't just a profession I admire. It's my dream, he said while looking at the moon, speaking sincerely. I want to be like them. I want to be a hero like All Might. But his expression grew more serious and melancholic. I am who I am. He didn't explain what he meant by that. And how could he? How could he say he was quirkless trying to get into the country's top hero school? How could he tell his neighbor that he was a non-normal? However, while the boy was melancholic, Ochako, on the other hand, looked at him with a soft smile and an admiring gaze. Chaco, once we pass the exam, I think UA will be the perfect place for you. For you to be so much more than you want to be, she said with a sideways smile, and her words made Izuku look at her, surprised. And you know what? I like the way you are, Yagi, she said, adjusting her hair. So, you shouldn't dislike yourself. Izuku's heart skipped a beat upon hearing those words from her, and at the same time, he felt his face heat up instantly. Izuku's heart skipped a beat upon hearing those words from her, and at the same time, he felt his face heat up instantly. He froze in place, unsure how to react. Hearing someone like her say she liked the way he was made him, well, happy, to be honest. He even opened his mouth, but no words came out. Ochako, however, just let out a small giggle and stepped back inside her room. Ochako, well, I think I should get some rest now. Good luck tomorrow, Yagi. I hope we become classmates at UA. Izuku, Waya still paralyzed. Izuku nodded quickly. Good night, Uraraka. She waved and closed the window, disappearing from his sight, while Izuku stood there for a moment, still processing what had just happened. His heart was still racing, and a persistent warmth spread across his face. But it didn't take long for his expression to turn more serious and slightly sad as well. And the reason was what she had just said. You shouldn't dislike yourself. At that moment, I didn't know if I believed that. I didn't know if she would still like me if she knew the truth. Narrated Izuku, while the present one closed his eyes for a moment, feeling a familiar weight in his chest. She said that because she didn't know. She didn't know he was quirkless. He kept thinking about what would happen when she found out. That thought not only made Izuku sigh but also made him feel a small lump in his throat. But there was one truth I knew. I was still a quirkless trying to reach for something impossible. He said as Izuku then entered his house, ready to face the next day, where an uncertain future awaited him. End of soundtrack. Next day. Time: 7:30 a.m. The day had finally arrived. Izuku had barely gotten any sleep due to his anxiety. Speaking of him, he was kneeling beside his bed, finishing up organizing his backpack for the big day while already dressed in his Aldra school uniform. Along with the necessary school supplies and clothes, he placed 2 pieces of equipment he had designed over the past 2 months inside. His metal gloves with claws and a small pouch containing the bombs he had created. It wasn't anything extravagant, but it could clearly be crucial for him. Just as he closed his backpack, his bedroom door suddenly swung open. Tashinori, Izuku? His sudden appearance startled Izuku slightly, making him turn around quickly to find his father standing at the door. Izuku. Dad, I already told you not to come in like that without knocking, he complained, frowning. Tashinori, sorry, my bad. I swear I'm trying to break that habit. Tashinori raised his hands in a gesture of surrender as he said this. Taking advantage of the moment, Izuku pulled his backpack closer and fully closed it, ensuring his father wouldn't see what was inside. He didn't want Tashinori to start asking questions. Izuku, what do you need? Tashinori, I just came by to let you know that your breakfast is already in the kitchen, he said with a light smile. And also, I wanted to ask, have you decided which course you're going to take? Izuku, well, you'll find out soon enough, he said, trying to sound casual while keeping a neutral expression. Tashinori, ha, you always like to keep things mysterious, huh? Tashinori let out a short laugh. If I had to guess, I'd say the support course. You've always loved inventing things ever since David introduced you to his inventions. The man's words only made Izuku smirk slightly, neither confirming nor denying it. Anyway, I'm already on my way to UA. The team needs me for the exam preparations. See you there. He was about to leave, but just as he stepped outside, he paused at the doorway. He stood still for a moment, and Izuku noticed, especially when his father placed a hand on his abdomen, lightly pressing the area where his old wound used to be. Izuku, Dad? Tashinori, son, I've been thinking. Tashinori seemed like he wanted to say something as he remained with his back turned. His gaze grew distant for a few moments, as if he were debating internally. Izuku waited, wondering what he was going to say, but the words never came. In the end, he simply forced a smile and let out a sigh. Tashinori, it's nothing. Good luck, son, he said in a gentle tone. Izuku felt a slight tightness in his chest. Something was left unsaid. It felt like disappointment. Izuku, thanks. Tashinori nodded and left the room, leaving Izuku alone. The silence that followed felt heavier than before, and the only thing the young man did was sigh and look at his backpack. Izuku, yeah, I'm really going to need it, he murmured to himself, feeling the weight of the moment. Today was the day, the beginning of what could shape his future. UA building. Time, 8:30 a.m. As soon as Izuku finished his breakfast and gathered everything he needed, he left home and headed toward his destination. The main gate of UA was open, allowing candidates to enter for the entrance exam. The place was packed with students from different schools, all anxious, excited, and determined. Amidst the crowd, standing before the imposing UA building, Izuku observed everything in awe. It was his first time seeing the institution in person. He had read a lot about the school, seen pictures, promotional videos, but nothing compared to actually being there right in front of it. Izuku, oh my goodness, he murmured to himself, feeling a chill run down his spine. The building was grand, and this was just the first sight upon entry. He could feel the history and weight of the place, the spot where the world's greatest heroes had begun their journeys, including his father. Inspired with every step he took, Izuku was almost ready to head toward the building's entrance. But before he could move forward, a strong impact came from his side, knocking him off balance. His shoulder was shoved abruptly, nearly making him stumble. Bakugu, out of the way, Deku, a familiar voice, full of arrogance, sounded as it passed him. You shouldn't even be here, you freak. Insert soundtrack. The Down Dragon John Powell. Izuku frowned instantly. Katsuki Bakugu walked past him without even looking back, his confident and smug stride as irritating as ever. Izuku felt his fists clench. His first instinct was anger. He even considered confronting him and was about to say something, but he took a deep breath. Izuku, Of course, it had to be him. He muttered to himself, standing his ground as Bakugu continued into the building. Letting out a heavy sigh, Izuku closed his eyes for a moment, trying to calm his nerves. He knew he had to stay focused on the exam. Taking a deep breath, he took his first step toward the building. But the moment he moved forward, he tripped over an uneven spot on the ground. His eyes widened as he realized he was about to fall flat on his face. Ochako, are you okay? Suddenly, his fall was interrupted. Izuku felt his body float slightly before stopping midair, as if the gravity around him had been nullified. Confused, and hearing that voice, he turned his head and saw Ochako, who had touched his arm just in time, smiling gently. Ochako. Good morning, Yagi, she greeted cheerfully, adjusting his position in the air before letting him land firmly on his feet again. Izuku. Gee, good morning, Uraraka, thanks for that, he said, fixing his posture and feeling his cheeks heat up a little. Ochako. Ah, it was nothing. She waved her hand dismissively. It wouldn't be great to start the day by kissing the pavement, right? Her comment made Izuku scratch his head, feeling slightly embarrassed. Izuku. Ugh. How embarrassing. My nerves always get the best of me. Ochako. Hee, if anyone should be nervous here. It's me, she joked, giving him a light nudge on the shoulder with an excited smile. Izuku chuckled awkwardly at her comment. Compared to the other candidates, he should probably be keeping his composure, or at least trying to. Izuku. Well, thanks again for saving me from that humiliation. Ochako. No problem, but speaking of which, she tilted her head slightly, curious. What exactly happened there? Was it just a trip? Or did someone push you? Izuku. Not my fault. Look at this ground structure. He pointed at the area where he had tripped. If I trip again, I should sue UA for nearly making me embarrass myself. He said this in a dramatically serious tone, which made Ochako laugh. Ochako. Well, look on the bright side, at least I showed up at the right time. She shrugged playfully. Izuku. Definitely. He smiled, clearly charmed by her warmth. So, how does your quirk work? He asked as they started walking together. Ochako. Ah, it's pretty simple. I can remove gravity from anything I touch with the tips of my fingers, she explained, showing her palms and pointing at the small pink circles on her fingertips. With this, I can make objects or even people float, but if I overdo it, I get sick. Izuku. Sick? In what way? Ochako. Ugh. She made a gagging gesture and sound, making Izuku grimace in understanding. Yeah, not a pretty sight, but it only happens if I use it for too long or on something too heavy. Izuku. That explains why you let go so quickly. You didn't want to take any risks right at the start of the exam. Huh? Ochako. Nah, you're as light as a feather. She responded casually. But what about you? What's your quirk? The question made Izuku tense up slightly. He averted his gaze for a moment before scratching his chin and responding hesitantly. Izuku, it's nothing special. It's kind of trivial. His answer, or lack thereof, made Ochako frown slightly. Ochako, trivial? Oh, come on, no way, you came all the way here, so you definitely have something special. Izuku felt a tightness in his chest. He didn't know if he could just tell the truth right there. In fact, he was trying to avoid this topic at all costs, so he forced a smile. Izuku, well, I think we should hurry. We don't want to miss the exam, right? Ochako looked at him for a moment before shrugging and agreeing. Ochako, true, but hey, I'll be expecting that answer later. Got it? She said as she walked past him, while he stopped in his tracks, laughing nervously. Izuku, okay, God help me. He started to worry. Ochako, aren't you coming, Yagi? Hearing the girl's question, who had stopped to wait for him, Izuku ran to catch up with her. Then, the two walked together toward the entrance of the building. Their fate within UA was about to be decided. End of soundtrack. End. 1:35. Time, 9 a.m. In one of UA's spacious classrooms, many of the candidates waited anxiously for the written exam to begin. Among them, Izuku took deep breaths, trying to calm his nerves as he organized his materials on the desk. At the front of the room, the pro-hero and teacher, Cementos, observed the students with a serious expression. Seeing the pro-hero, Izuku felt relieved that it wasn't his father. Cementos, good morning, everyone. His firm voice immediately captured the attention of those present. Welcome to UA's entrance exam. This is the written portion, in which you will have 1 hour to answer the presented questions. Once you complete the written exam, those applying for the hero course must proceed to the auditorium for the next phase. The rest of you will be free to return home. He paused, making sure everyone understood the instructions. Any questions before we begin? Silence filled the room, indicating that everything was clear. The candidates exchanged glances, some showing confidence, others clearly apprehensive. Cementos, very well. You may begin. With those words, he activated the digital timer on the wall, setting exactly 1 hour. The sound of pages turning and pens touching paper soon filled the room. Izuku took a deep breath and started his test. As he read each question, his lips moved almost imperceptibly, murmuring parts of the answers, a habit he had developed to maintain concentration. Some classmates cast curious glances his way, intrigued by his method, while others were clearly annoyed, though not enough to stop their own tests. Izuku, however, seemed oblivious, fully immersed in his own rhythm. 15 minutes passed, and Izuku put his school materials back in his backpack, quickly reviewing his answers. Satisfied, he stood up with determination and walked to Cementos's desk, handing in his answer sheet. Izuku, it's done. His words not only surprised Cementos but also the other candidates. Is he already done? A girl whispered. I'm not even halfway through yet. A boy murmured. No, that's impossible, another boy said. Among the glances exchanged, a pink-haired, yellow-eyed girl looked at Izuku's paper, impressed to see that he had actually answered every question. Cementos, you finished quite quickly, young man, he commented, raising an eyebrow. Izuku, yes, sir. He replied with a respectful nod. Cementos, very well. You're dismissed, he said, accepting the exam and watching as Izuku left the room. As soon as the door closed, Cementos couldn't help but feel a tinge of curiosity. He looked at Izuku's answer sheet and began to review it. To his surprise, the first questions were all correct, and as he moved on to the next ones, he became even more impressed. Cementos, well, would you look at that? He thought to himself. He takes after his mother's intelligence. Unlike his father. A slight smile appeared on his lips as he glanced at the door Izuku had exited through. Meanwhile, in the hallways of UA, Izuku walked toward the auditorium. His heart was pounding, not just from the anticipation of the next phase, but also from the satisfaction of having completed the written exam with confidence. Now, he just needed to maintain that confidence during the practical test. Izuku, first part is over. Now it's time for practice, he murmured to himself, lightly gripping the strap of his backpack as he made his way to the next challenge. UA Auditorium. After finishing the written exam, Izuku headed to UA's auditorium, where he would wait for the next stage of the entrance exam for hero course applicants. The space was vast, with rows of seats extending toward the main stage. Izuku chose a seat in the middle of the auditorium, trying to blend in among the other candidates. As he waited, he observed the other aspiring heroes entering and taking their seats, each displaying a mix of nervousness, determination, or confidence. To his dismay, Katsuki Bakugu entered the auditorium and headed straight for the seat, right next to Izuku. He only noticed the green-haired boy when he was about to sit down. Initially, neither of them exchanged words, remaining in an awkward silence. However, the explosive blonde decided to break it. Bakugu, what the hell are you still doing here, Deku? He whispered with disdain, keeping his eyes fixed ahead. Izuku, that's none of your concern, he replied in a neutral tone, also looking forward. Bakugu, still as stubborn as ever. You're gonna get yourself killed trying to be a hero. UA isn't a place for a useless loser like you. He sneered, flashing a sarcastic smirk. Izuku remained silent, clenching his fists over his thighs. Though Bakugu's words stung, he refused to show weakness. Instead, he shot a firm, disdainful glare at his former friend, making it clear that he wouldn't be shaken and that he wouldn't let Bakugu talk crap without consequences. Before the tension could escalate further, the auditorium lights dimmed, drawing everyone's attention to the stage. A spotlight illuminated the center, revealing the energetic figure of the pro-hero known as Present Mike. With his signature style, he struck a dramatic, but undeniably cool pose and flashed a wide grin. Present Mike, welcome, hero candidates. His voice echoed throughout the auditorium, filled with enthusiasm. Are you ready for the challenge ahead? Come on, say yeah. An awkward silence filled the room. The candidates, though surprised by Present Mike's presence, did not immediately respond. Present Mike, ha ha ha, I get it, you all want to play it cool. Huh? He asked, unfazed. Well, I'll get straight to the point. I'm here to give you a quick rundown of how the practical exam will go. Are you ready? Come on. I want to hear a yeah, he encouraged them, cupping his hand around his ear, waiting for someone to shout. And once again, silence prevailed. Izuku, feeling the need to match the hero's energy, clenched his fists and, summoning his courage, shouted, Izuku, yeah. All eyes turned to him, and Izuku felt his face heat up in embarrassment upon realizing he was the only one who yelled. However, Present Mike pointed in his direction, grinning widely. Present Mike. That's the spirit, thanks. Kid, you just earned some points with me, he exclaimed, giving Izuku a thumbs up as one of the stage lights suddenly shone on him. Izuku. Izuku let out a timid chuckle as murmurs spread throughout the auditorium. Bakugu, sitting beside him, rolled his eyes, clearly annoyed. Present Mike, oh boy, he's here. While outwardly maintaining his cheerful smile, Mike felt a wave of nervousness inside. All Might's son is here? Oh, crap, does he know about this? Present Mike, keeping his usual energy and focus, drew everyone's attention back to himself as he raised his hands and gestured toward the large screen behind him. Present Mike, all right, everyone pay attention now that we're all warmed up. Let's get to business. His voice boomed through the auditorium, making the candidates refocus on him. You'll have 10 minutes in a simulated urban battle. Your objective is to rack up points by defeating 3 types of mock villains. Each villain has a point value based on their difficulty level. He pointed to the screen, which displayed images of different numbered robotic villains from 1 to 3, along with an animated mini-Mike in the simulated city taking down one of the robots to simplify things. Izuku observed intently, absorbing every detail. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness at the thought of the upcoming challenge. Present Mike, after this presentation, check your identification cards. Each one indicates the specific battle center you'll be assigned to. He held up a card similar to the candidates, displaying an alphanumeric code. Izuku quickly grabbed his card and saw the inscription. Beside him, Bakugu did the same, glancing at his own card with a serious yet irritated expression. Bakugu, Battle Center A. Huh? Looks like you got lucky, Deku. If we were in the same field, I'd crush you. His voice carried arrogant confidence mixed with irritation. Izuku, is that really a hero's attitude? Izuku shot back, rolling his eyes. Present Mike, when you encounter these villains, use your quirks to earn points by defeating them. But be warned, attacking other candidates or engaging in any anti-heroic behavior is strictly prohibited. His tone grew more serious as he emphasized the last part. As he processed the information, Izuku began murmuring to himself, placing a hand on his chin as he analyzed possible strategies. Izuku, if they're robots, their weak points might be at the joints or an energy source. Aiming for the head could cause a short circuit, but taking out the legs is also an option to limit movement. It probably depends on the size and speed of the villain, so I need to think fast and be precise with my attacks. His murmuring, though quiet, was noticed by a few people nearby, though they didn't seem too bothered by it. Excuse me, but may I ask a question? Suddenly, a hand was raised in the middle of the auditorium. Present Mike. Yes, go ahead. He pointed to the bespectacled student who had stood up. A spotlight illuminated the young man as he stood up from his chair and raised the pamphlet in his hands. Tenya, In the informational pamphlet, it mentions the existence of 4 types of villains, not 3. If this is a mistake, it is unacceptable and shameful for an institution of UA's caliber. We are students who came here to UA to become exemplary heroes. Furthermore, he turned, pointing at Izuku. You with the green hair. Izuku, huh? He was surprised and confused at being called out. Tenya, your constant murmuring is distracting us, and it's starting to irritate me. If you're not taking this seriously, I suggest you leave. Izuku was taken aback, feeling all eyes on him. He blushed in embarrassment but took a deep breath before responding. Izuku, I apologize. I was just focusing on the explanation and analyzing strategies to face the mock villains. I didn't realize I was bothering anyone. Having super hearing must be complicated. Tenya, super hearing? I don't have super hearing. Izuku, huh? But if you don't have super hearing, how did you hear me from here? You're 2 seats ahead of me, and you're the only one bothered by my murmuring? Are you paying attention to present Mick's explanation and to me at the same time? He asked out of pure curiosity, which consequently silenced Ida. A few restrained chuckles echoed through the auditorium, including one from Ochako, who was sitting a bit further away. Ida, realizing the situation, fell silent and lowered his head, clearly embarrassed. Present Mike, all right, to clarify. There is, in fact, a 4th type of villain known as the 0-pointer. And as the name suggests, it's worth 0 points and serves as an obstacle. It's recommended to avoid it, but if someone wants to face it, go ahead. Just don't expect to earn points for it. He explained with a smile. Is that clear now, Candidate 7111? Or do you have anything else to ask? He asked with his hands on his hips. Tenya, you understood. Thank you for the clarification, and I apologize for the interruption, he said, bowing before sitting down. Present Mike. In short, everyone, that's all I wanted to go over. And before you all go, let's shout out the school's motto Napoleon Bonaparte once said. A true hero is one who overcomes life's difficulties. So, go even further plus ultra, he exclaimed, clearly trying to motivate the candidates, and to some extent it worked. The candidates felt a renewed determination to push themselves further, and Izuku, though still more nervous than most, felt a newfound resolve growing inside him. The challenge had been set, and he was ready to face it. 30 minutes later, after the explanation in the auditorium, the candidates were directed to their respective battle centers. Before arriving at the location, all candidates had to change out of their school uniforms into more suitable attire for the practical exam, which they did before reaching the battlefield gate. Izuku wore a black hoodie adorned with green details on the shoulders and lower part. Underneath, a green t-shirt complemented the ensemble. Tight black pants and black sneakers with green accents completed his outfit. On his hands, he wore metallic clawed gloves inspired by fury, and a small pouch on his waist carried the bombs he had developed himself. As he waited for the exam to begin, Izuku noticed that many candidates displayed confidence, some even underestimating others around them, including Izuku himself, by casting dismissive glances in his direction. As he waited for the exam to begin, Izuku noticed that many candidates displayed confidence, some even underestimating others around them, including Izuku himself, by casting dismissive glances in his direction. However, the green-haired boy preferred to avoid eye contact. Unlike them, Izuku remained calm, taking deep breaths to control his anxiety and nerves. Unlike everyone else, he was the only quirkless person there. His eyes then wandered around until they found Ochako, his neighbor and the source of his most tender feelings. She was a little ahead, showing signs of nervousness as she stared at the gate. A gentle smile formed on Izuku's face upon seeing her, and he decided to approach her to offer support. However, before he could take a step, he felt a firm hand on his shoulder. Turning around, he found himself face to face with Tenya Ida, the rigid candidate who had already called him out earlier. Tenya, what do you intend to do by approaching that girl? Can't you see she's trying to concentrate? He asked seriously. Izuku, she's my neighbor, and she looks nervous. I just wanted to offer some support. He replied, turning to face Ida directly. You know, I'm starting to think you have a problem with me. Tenya, I simply believe that unnecessary interferences can compromise the performance of other candidates. We should all maintain absolute focus on the exam," he stated, crossing his arms. "Izuku, that's a valid concern, but I don't think a gesture of support counts as interference. Besides, I find it funny that you're saying this when you've already picked on me twice today, in the auditorium and now. Maybe you should focus more on your own performance instead of wasting your time on me," he countered, looking directly into Tenya's eyes. Tenya opened his mouth to respond but hesitated. Realizing the validity of Izuku's words, he closed his mouth and nodded, though he still seemed a bit reluctant. Before any further interaction could occur, the gates in front of the candidates began to open slowly. From a platform above, Present Mike watched the scene with enthusiasm. "Present Mike, what are you all waiting for? The exam has already started in real life. There are no countdowns. Go move it," he shouted while waving his arm, urging the candidates to hurry. With the announcement, they began running toward the test site, entering the simulated city where the practical exam would take place. Izuku, initially a bit behind due to his interaction with Tenya, adjusted his stance and started running. Insert soundtrack. This time for sure John Powell. Even though he was giving it his all, Izuku found himself lagging behind while the other candidates quickly dispersed throughout the city simulation, each aiming to accumulate points by defeating robotic villains. Izuku took a deep breath as he observed this, trying to stay calm and not let panic take over. "Izuku, no panic, no panic." Suddenly, a nearby wall exploded into debris, revealing a one-point robot, the Pointer One. The machine quickly advanced toward Izuku as soon as it saw him. Caught off guard, Izuku froze, unable to react, especially as he watched the machine rushing toward him. Then, at the last moment, a laser beam cut through the air, destroying the robot in front of him. The one responsible was none other than a young man with blonde hair and a confident, elegant expression. "Oyama, merci for distracting it for me. We make quite the duo, don't you think? Although I doubt we'll meet again," he said, winking at Izuku before walking away in search of more robots. "Adieu." Izuku, what? Still dazed, Izuku watched Aoyama walk away, confused by his words. Before he could fully process what had just happened, the sounds of nearby battles snapped him back to reality, reminding him of the exam. Oh no. Running through the streets, Izuku saw the wreckage of scattered robots, evidence of the other candidates' achievements. Desperation began to grow within him as he realized he was falling behind more than he had thought. As he passed an alley, he spotted Ochako using her quirk to make 3 robots float before releasing them, destroying them upon impact with the ground. "Chako, good. 12 points," she said, slightly out of breath before running off in search of more robots. Further ahead, Ida was speeding at full tilt, leaping into the air and delivering a precise kick to the face of another machine, dismantling it. "Tenya, 18 points." Hearing that, Izuku was shocked to realize that they had already scored points. And to make matters worse, more shouts echoed around him as candidates claimed their scores. 5 more points for me. That robot is mine. I saw it first. Got another one." Hearing those cries from the other candidates in all directions only increased the pressure, and Izuku, feeling increasingly helpless, ran frantically in search of opportunities. "Izuku, no. There has to be a point for me, there has to be," he thought as he ran desperately, looking in all directions, searching for any remaining robots. "If I keep this up, there'll be nothing left for me." Amid his frantic sprint, he failed to notice a metal piece on the ground, remnants of a destroyed robot, and tripped, crashing heavily onto the pavement. This humiliation not only let his frustration take over but also fueled his desperation and anger, making him punch the ground twice. End of the soundtrack. Izuku, you idiot, after 2 months of training with Fury, is this how I perform? He murmured, feeling tears threatening to form in his eyes. As he remained on the ground, punching it once more with his right fist, his eyes landed on his own hand, specifically his metallic glove, and that triggered a memory in his mind. Flashback. Insert soundtrack. I can't hear you. Rupert Gregson Williams. Start. 1:35. During one of his training sessions, Izuku was running alongside Fury, trying to keep up with his pace. Exhausted and breathing heavily, his steps became sluggish until he inevitably tripped over nothing, falling to his knees. The cold, damp ground pressed against his hands as he struggled to catch his breath. Fury, noticing his human friend's fall, stopped running, his eyes locking onto Izuku with concern and encouragement. Fury, concerned grunt, with careful steps, the dragon approached, stopping beside Izuku. Encouraging grunt, he let out a low growl as he brought his snout closer to Izuku's side. Izuku, sorry. Fury, I'll get up. I just need. His voice was strained with exhaustion and slight frustration at how tired he had become. Fury tilted his head, moving even closer. With surprising gentleness for a creature of his size, he slid his head under Izuku's arm, lifting him up slowly, catching the young human off guard. Izuku, Fury? He whispered, feeling himself being raised. Fury, encouraging grunt, the dragon stepped back slightly, positioning himself behind Izuku. With a gentle nudge of his snout, he urged him to stand. And as Izuku finally got to his feet, Fury locked eyes with him before glancing forward and then back at him. And as Izuku finally got to his feet, Fury locked eyes with him before glancing forward and then back at him. The dragon's determined gaze seemed to say, "Keep going, you can go further than this." Feeling a surge of emotion, Izuku felt a genuine smile form on his face. Fury's steady presence at his side renewed his strength. With a nod, Izuku took a deep breath, steadied his body, and got into a running stance. Izuku, go. Even further, he said, voicing the school motto he had been embracing little by little. He started with a walk, then picked up the pace, and ran once more. Plus, ultra. Fury. Joyful roar. Fury let out a delighted sound, running at the same speed beside him. Together, they resumed their run through the forest, side by side, each step strengthening the bond between this young human and the formidable dragon. End of flashback. The memory reignited a newfound determination in Izuku. Slowly, he got back on his feet, feeling energy return to his body. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment, connecting with the inner strength that Fury had always helped him find. Suddenly, the piercing sound of metal being crushed echoed nearby. A 3-point robot, Pointer 3, burst through another wall, heading straight for Izuku. This time, with a resolute look, Izuku quickly reached for his bag, pulled out one of his bombs, and threw it with precision at the robot's head. The resulting explosion disabled the machine, which fell inert before him. Feeling the rush of air caused by the robot's fall, Izuku smiled, whispering to himself. Izuku, 3 points, he said with a smile on his face. With renewed confidence, he prepared to face the remaining challenges of the exam as he stood up. End of soundtrack. In the UA monitoring room, a select group of teachers attentively watched the candidates' performances during the practical exam. Among them were well-known figures: Vlad King, 13, Midnight, Ectoplasm, Power Loader, Aizawa, Cementos, and Principal Nizu. And, of course, Toshinori Yagi was also present, observing with interest the potential future heroes. And there were many. The multiple screens displayed the candidates in action, facing the villain robots with various strategies and abilities. Some teachers commented among themselves about the promising performance of certain students, highlighting innovative techniques and impressive demonstrations of power. Midnight. It looks like we'll have quite a promising batch of students this year. 13. Indeed, but only a few will have the privilege of being in our classes. Vlad King. I've already got my eye on some potential students. What about you? Eraserhead? Any candidates that caught your attention? Vlad was enthusiastic, while Aizawa remained neutral. Aizawa. It doesn't matter. It's the boss's decision whether they enter in my class or not. Toshinori. I agree with Midnight. We have some very promising candidates this year. Nizu. Oh, look at that. Suddenly, Nizu leaned forward, his eyes locking onto a specific screen. It seems that a particular candidate has shown up. His soft voice caught the other's attention as he pointed to the screen, showing a green-haired young man advancing toward a two-point robot. Tashinori. What? Who? Upon hearing this, Tashinori turned his gaze to the indicated screen. Recognizing the young man as his son, Izuku, his body tensed, and he abruptly stood up from his chair, the surprise evident on his face as he saw his son not only facing the robot but also destroying it by throwing a bomb at its face. Izuku? What is he doing here? His voice carried a mix of disbelief and concern. Insert soundtrack. See you tomorrow, John Powell. Ectoplasm. Is that your son? Power loader. Interesting. He's using his own equipment to compensate for the absence of a quirk. He commented, intrigued. The other teachers exchanged glances, aware of Tashinori's overprotectiveness toward his son and his desire to keep him away from the dangers of a hero's life. Cementas. It seems he decided to follow in your footsteps, despite the risks. He commented while looking at Tashinori, who remained silent, his eyes fixed on the screen, internally struggling between pride in his son's performance and fear for the dangers he faced. Midnight, and he's doing very well, considering the circumstances, she added, watching as Izuku jumped from the carcass of a machine in search of another. On the battlefield, Izuku took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline rush through his veins. With a bomb in hand, he quickly assessed the environment, searching for his next target. A one-point robot appeared to his right, advancing rapidly. Without hesitation, Izuku threw the bomb directly at the machine's head. The controlled explosion instantly disabled the robot, which crashed heavily to the ground. Izuku, and there goes another one, he exclaimed excitedly, already looking for the next challenge. Turning a corner, he came across two two-point robots that immediately aimed at the green-haired boy. They moved in sync, trying to surround him. Izuku sprinted toward a nearby building, using his agility to climb a fire escape. From above, he assessed the robots' positions and then he leaped onto the first one, driving the claws of his metal gloves into the machine's head, slicing through it like butter and disabling it. Using the inert robot's body as a springboard, he launched himself toward the second one, repeating the motion directly into the machine's eye, securing another 4 points. Izuku, 10. That makes 10 now. He quickly calculated, feeling his confidence grow as he jumped off the machine that was about to crash to the ground. Continuing his search, he heard the distinct sound of heavy gears. A 3-point robot emerged from an alley, its massive structure not only destroying the passage, but also casting an intimidating shadow. Izuku knew he needed a strategic approach. Recalling a trick he had played with Fury during training, he zigzagged, making it harder for the robot to aim as its single eye tracked him. Moving in fast, he hurled a bomb directly at the machine's knee joint. The explosion threw the robot off balance, causing it to topple. Seizing the opportunity, Izuku climbed onto its metallic arm and, with a precise slash of his claws, disabled the central core in the robot's head. Izuku, 13 down, he whispered, panting but determined as he pulled his arm out of the machine. In the distance, he heard the metallic sound of another robot approaching. A 2-point robot appeared at the end of the street, chasing a candidate who was struggling to evade its attacks. Without hesitation, Izuku dashed forward. With a leap, he threw a bomb at the side of the robot and upon impact, the device exploded, disabling one of its mechanical legs. Before the machine could adjust its stance, Izuku landed in front of it, slashing down with his metal claws in a lethal strike, shutting it down. The candidate, surprised, widened her eyes. Izuku, sorry, I needed those points. Izuku didn't wait for any thanks and was already running off again, back on the hunt for more targets. Elsewhere in the field, a robust candidate used his quirk to reinforce his fists, punching a 1-point robot and managing to disable it with some difficulty. As he turned, ready to face another opponent, he witnessed Izuku approaching a 3-point robot. The green-haired boy slid across the ground, positioning himself behind the machine. With a swift motion, he tossed 2 bombs simultaneously, one at the robot's shoulder joint and the other at its center. The consecutive explosions made the machine falter. Izuku took the opening, climbed its side, and drove his claws directly into the automaton's optical sensor, shutting it down instantly. Damn, that was sick, bro. The candidate praised Izuku's move. Hearing this, Izuku raised a thumbs up before sprinting off again. Ida was speeding ahead at full force, focused on a 2-point robot 2 streets away, which had also locked onto him. Using his propulsion technique, he prepared to land a precise kick. However, just as he was about to strike, a bomb hit the robot's head as it passed the street ahead and detonated, leaving only smoldering debris on the ground. "Tenya, what?" he exclaimed, coming to a sudden halt. "Izuku, 20, yes, I hit 20, he shouted while running in another direction, already looking for a new target, while Ida could only stand there in stunned surprise at seeing Izuku destroy the robot ahead of him. Every one of Izuku's moves was being closely observed by the teachers in the monitoring room. Tashinori's initial surprise gradually gave way to a sense of restrained pride. Though concern still lingered in his eyes, deep down, he couldn't help but be impressed, a strange mix of admiration and pride growing within him. "Nizu, I didn't know your son could do that, Tashinori," he commented with an enigmatic smile. Izuku didn't stop. He ran, jumped, strategically launched bombs, and destroyed every machine in his path. His internal counter had already reached 25 points. Further ahead, he spotted a group of candidates struggling against a 3-point robot. The problem? They were too busy arguing over who had seen the robot first and who should get the points. Izuku quickly analyzed the scene and formed a plan. Accelerating, he used the debris of fallen robots around him as stepping stones to leap toward the machine. Mid-air, he spun his body and threw a bomb that exploded at the base of the robot's leg, making it lose balance. Then he landed on the machine's shoulder and drove his claws straight into its head. The robot shut down instantly. The surrounding candidates stood there, stunned. "Hey, that was mine," one of them shouted as Izuku ran off in another direction. Izuku, 28. He ignored the other candidates who were now outraged. With a determined look, he spotted 2 1-point robots at the corner. Without hesitation, he charged toward them. Dodging the machine's arm attacks, he moved between them, causing them to hit each other. Then he launched his last 2 bombs. The explosions were precise. Both robots collapsed, deactivated. "Izuku, 30. Izuku smiled, feeling the sweat drip down his forehead. He stopped for a moment, observing the wreckage of the machines ahead of him, feeling not only impressed with himself but also pleased that he wasn't falling behind. End of soundtrack. End. 302. In the UA monitoring room, the teachers were closely observing the candidate's performance in the practical exam. Tashinori, still shocked to see his son Izuku participating in the test, voiced his concern. Insert soundtrack. 1600 Men, Thomas Newman. "Tashinori, can someone tell me what Izuku is doing here? How did he end up there?" he asked, pointing at the screen and staring at the other teachers. "Cementas, I saw him during the written exam. He finished in 15 minutes. I thought you had approved his admission to UA All Might," he explained calmly. "Tashinori, I approved it for other courses, not the hero ones. Power loader. If I may say, even though the boy is quirkless, he's doing well with the equipment he developed. 13, you should be proud, All Might. Your son is showing great potential. He's already taken down over 30. Aizawa, I'd say he's taking too many risks," he said, neutrally watching Izuku. "Being quirkless makes the battlefield far more dangerous for people like him, no matter how brave they are. That kid should consider that," he added, impassively, arms crossed. Tashinori remained silent, visibly uneasy. As the countdown showed 3 minutes left in the exam, Nizu decided it was time to introduce the 0-pointer. "Nizu, time to release the 0-pointer. His words made Tashinori's eyes widen in shock. "Tashinori, B-boss, please don't do this. Izuku is still out there." "Nizu, calm down, Tashinori." Mike informed the candidates that defeating the 0-pointer grants no points. "I'm sure Izuku will step back along with the others." With that, Nizu opened a control panel on the monitors and pressed a red button, initiating the release of the 0-pointer onto the battlefield. And as we all know, the 0-pointer is not just an obstacle, it's a test. On the battlefield, the candidates felt the ground tremble violently. Nearby buildings began to crack, some even collapsing, sending a cloud of dust into the air. Izuku, panting after his recent efforts, looked around, trying to identify the source of the commotion. When he lifted his gaze, his heart nearly stopped. A colossal machine, the zero-pointer, was advancing steadily, crushing structures beneath its feet. The massive robot raised its fist and slammed it into the ground, sending a wave of dust and debris flying. The impact forced Izuku to shield his eyes, while the powerful wind almost knocked him off his feet. As the dust began to settle, he noticed the other candidates running in panic, desperately trying to escape the imminent threat. Among them, Ida cast a concerned glance at Izuku, who remained frozen, but ultimately chose to continue his escape, leaving the green-haired boy behind. In the monitoring room, Toshinori watched the scene with his heart pounding in his chest. Seeing his son face the zero-pointer pushed him into a state of deep anxiety. Toshinori, get out of there, come on, move, he thought, standing rigid, clenching his teeth, and trembling. Present Mike. Only 2 minutes left in the exam, he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. His words snapped Izuku out of his trance. He was preparing to retreat, following the example of the others. He was about to run when... Ochako, arg. A muffled sound of pain caught his attention, making him stop in his tracks. There was no mistaking that voice. Turning around, he saw Ochako, her leg trapped under rubble, looking too exhausted to get up or too hurt to run. And worst of all, there was no one around to help. That sight made Izuku's eyes widen automatically, and he forgot the fear he'd felt when seeing the zero-pointer. Without hesitation, even with the huge danger before him, Izuku took a few steps forward. Toshinori, no, Izuku, no. He watched what Izuku was doing and began to panic. It only worsened when Izuku started to quicken his pace and ran towards Ochako. Izuku, Uraraka, he yelled as he sprinted in her direction. Toshinori. No, seeing his son's decision, panic grew along with desperation, making everyone in the room stare at him with wide eyes. As he continued running at full speed, Izuku noticed the zero-pointer was just a few steps away. That is, he realized there was still a chance to prevent Ochako from being stepped on. It didn't take long for him to reach her, and she noticed his presence as he ran toward her. Ochako, Yagi, no, you need to get out of here, it's too dangerous, she said as Izuku stopped in front of her. Izuku, I'm not leaving without you now. He tried to lift the chunk of concrete trapping Ochako's leg, using all the strength he had. With tremendous effort, he managed to move the rubble enough to free her. Can you get up? As he helped her to her feet, he noticed she had twisted her ankle and couldn't walk. Ochako, I can't run, she said, the pain clear in her voice. Izuku, here, come with me, determined. He picked her up in his arms, using all his strength to lift her off the ground, which not only surprised her but also made her blush. Let's go. With her in his arms, Izuku used all his speed to move them both away from the robot. However, even though he was running as fast as he could, the zero-pointer was still much closer than they had imagined, its colossal shadow engulfing them. The robot raised its arm, ready to strike the ground again. Ochako saw this and panicked. Combining the strength of the machine, the shockwave, and their proximity, the result would be devastating for Izuku. Ochako, Yagi, she screamed desperately, causing Izuku to look back and understand what the robot was about to do. With no other options, Izuku sat down on the ground and wrapped his arms around Ochako, trying to shield her with his own body for the impending impact, instinctively bracing to protect her, not caring for his own well-being. Izuku, close your eyes, he shouted, preparing for the incoming blow. Ochako, even in the face of danger, widened her eyes. The warmth of his body surrounded her, and her heart raced as she realized he wasn't thinking of himself. He was willing to sacrifice himself for her. Nevertheless, she followed his instructions, hugging him back, ready for the wind impact. Then suddenly an impact came, but not toward them. It was a deafening crash that echoed above. The impact sounded like a punch hitting the robot's face, and for a brief moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then, a monstrous shockwave swept the field, dispersing the dust in all directions. The deafening noise echoed throughout the entire simulated city, drawing the attention of both Izuku and Ochako. The metal of the zero-pointer screeched loudly, as if screaming in protest against the overwhelming force of whoever delivered that punch. Cracks spread across its colossal face before it was thrown backward with brutal force. Its gigantic body flew for dozens of meters, crashing into an abandoned building, which imploded under the weight of the defeated machine. The robot fell, lifeless, its red sensor lights flickering out, and that left the young ones stunned. And then, in the center of the destruction, someone landed in front of them, and that someone was All Might, who landed with a powerful impact in front of Izuku and Ochako, a gust of air spreading around him. His gaze was serious, his fists still clenched. As the dust began to settle, the imposing figure of All Might became visible, hovering between them and the massive fallen robot. The number 1 hero had punched the zero-pointer with such force that he knocked it down, saving them at the last moment. All Might, are you guys okay? His powerful voice asked, but there was a note of concern in it. Ochako, All Might, you saved us, she said, tears of relief streaming down her face. Izuku, on the other hand, felt a mix of emotions: relief at being alive, gratitude that Ochako was safe, but also apprehension as he faced his father, who now stood before him as the hero All Might. The other candidates, who had moved away, began to notice the presence of the hero from afar. "It's All Might. He's here. Did you see what he did? With one punch, and he took that thing down." Those shouts were of surprise and admiration directed at the hero. However, All Might paid no attention to them, as he slowly turned his eyes toward Izuku. There was an intensity in that gaze, and the boy understood it. None of those young candidates, not even Ochako, were aware. But they were all in the middle of a conflict that was about to unfold between father and son, who were still staring at each other while the exam. Present mic. Time's up, the exam is over. End of soundtrack. 20 minutes later. Rest room. The rest room was silent. Izuku sat on one of the sofas, his right foot nervously tapping while his fingers drummed on his thigh. It had been 20 minutes since the end of the practical exam, and his mind wouldn't stop spinning. He was worried about Ochako. The impact of the fall and the tension of the moment still echoed in his head. In addition, his heart weighed heavy as he thought about his father discovering that he had participated in the exam without consulting him. The door creaked open, and Tashinori entered the room. His expression was rigid and disappointed. Izuku swallowed hard upon seeing that. "Izuku, how is Uraraka?" he asked quickly, trying to dissipate the heavy air. "Tashinori, she's fine. Recovery girl already took care of her. She just needs a little rest before leaving," he replied straightforwardly, but without changing his expression. Clearly, his tone and gaze indicated he wasn't there to talk about Ochako. Izuku noticed that immediately. "Izuku, Dad, he was about to explain but was interrupted. "Tashinori, how could you do this to me? We agreed you would apply to other courses at UA." "Izuku," he exclaimed, frustrated. His words made Izuku clench his fists and stand up from the sofa. "Izuku, agreed? I didn't agree to anything you decided that. Not me, I never agreed to that," he said, staring his father in the eyes, making Tashinori briefly close his eyes, taking a deep breath to contain his own irritation. "Tashinori, you could have hurt yourself? Or worse," his voice gained intensity. "You could have died out there." "Izuku, but I didn't die and I didn't get hurt either. I managed, didn't you see? I defeated some robots, Dad. I handled it with the gear I created myself," he said, pointing to his backpack on the sofa, implying that the equipment he used was inside. "Tashinori, you made gear without telling me? You did this behind my back?" he asked, incredulous and disapproving. "Izuku, because I knew you'd try to stop me?" he retorted, his voice full of frustration. "And now you're mad because I was right?" "Tashinori, Izuku." Tashinori ran a hand over his face, visibly exhausted. "What's your problem?" he exclaimed, his patience running thin. "Izuku, my problem? What's your problem?" Izuku took a step forward. I just want to be a hero like everyone else like you. Tashinori, I don't want you to be like me, he said, deepening his voice. Not like the others either. You need to stop trying to be something you're not. The air seemed to freeze in that moment. Izuku felt something break inside him. Izuku. So that's it? His voice trembled with anger and hurt. You're only like this because Mom is gone, right? Tashinori. He didn't say anything, just stared at the floor. Insert soundtrack. To the Cemetery, Marco Beltrami. Izuku. You've always been overprotective, but now you just want to lock me in a bubble? Izuku felt his throat tighten, but didn't back down. Dad, don't you see? I can take care of myself even without a quirk. You have to accept that I have the same dreams as you. I want to grow and be someone. I want my own path as a hero. He looked his father directly in the eyes as he said it, and asked the question that had been pounding in his mind all along. Can I be a hero because of this? Tashinori clenched his fists, and before he could hold himself back, he shouted. Tashinori, Eno, you can't accept reality, he yelled in his son's face, making Izuku step back. The silence that followed was deafening. Those words hit Izuku like a blow. He took a deep breath, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall from his eyes. Without saying another word, he grabbed his backpack from the sofa and headed toward the door. Before leaving, he cast one last look at his father. Izuku, thanks for your honesty. His voice was low, but filled with hurt. His voice was low, but filled with hurt. He left, slamming the door behind him. Tashinori stayed in the room, feeling the weight of his words. He sat on the sofa where Izuku had been moments before, resting his elbows on his knees and covering his face with his hands. A deep sigh escaped his lips as he reflected on the impact of his actions on his relationship with his son. End of soundtrack. Muzutafu Forest. The afternoon sun shone brightly in the sky. The gentle breeze carried the fresh scent of the vegetation, while the distant sound of birds completed the serenity of the environment. Near the small pond, Fury quenched his thirst, dipping his snout into the water. The dragon, in the utmost serenity, when suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps and heavy breathing broke the tranquility. Izuku emerged from between the trees, his face contorted in a mixture of anger and sadness. Without hesitation, he threw his backpack to the ground with force, making a thud echo. Izuku, is this how you see me then? He shouted, his voice echoing through the forest. So you see me as someone fragile then? He yelled as he kicked the backpack, releasing some of his frustration. No matter how hard I try, it's never enough for him. Fury. Confused grunt, Fury raised his head, his ears catching the shouts of his friend. With a low grunt, he cautiously approached, watching Izuku with attentive eyes. Izuku. I gave everything I had in that exam. He saw that I defeated those robots. He continued, running his hands through his hair in frustration. But to him, I'll always be weak. A useless quirkless. He sees me the way others see me. They arghhhhh. The pain in his words was evident. Izuku clenched his fists, yelling in the anger that boiled within him, and punched the trunk of a nearby tree. The wood cracked under the impact, and the sharp pain in his finger joints brought a momentary sense of relief for venting his frustration and rage against the trunk. However, it also made his legs go weak, not from the pain, but from the sadness and hurt. And the only thing that could be heard from Izuku as he knelt were sighs trying to hold back a potential cry. Fury. Concerned grunt. Fury, noticing Izuku's emotional state, let out a worried sound, moving even closer. This made Izuku turn around, meeting the dragon's concerned gaze. Izuku. Fury. He sighed, trying to force a smile. Sorry about this. You have nothing to do with my problems. Fury. The dragon tilted his head, his eyes reflecting empathy. Izuku. He began, but his voice failed him. I just wanted him to see how hard I try, how much I want to be a hero. Tears began to stream down Izuku's face, and Fury, in response, moved even closer, gently resting his head on the shoulder of his human friend. Izuku, it's okay. It's nothing, buddy. He reassured, gently petting the soft scales on Fury's head. It's nothing. After a few moments of shared silence, Izuku wiped his tears and tried to compose himself. Izuku, oh man, I totally forgot to buy more fish for you, he said, slapping his forehead. I'll go to the nearest fish market and be right back. Okay? He asked as he stood up. When Izuku started to walk away, Fury quickly moved to stand in front of him, blocking his path. Izuku, what's up, buddy? He asked, confused. I'm going to get your food. Fury. Persistent grunt. Fury spread his wings, fully extending them, and let out a loud grunt, trying to communicate something. Izuku, you want me to see your wings? He asked, tilting his head. They look fine to me. Your injuries have healed for a while now, to be honest. That's good, right? He asked, petting the dragon's head before trying to pass by the creature, who stared at him incredulously. But Fury stood his ground, blocking his path. Izuku, Fury, I already said. I promise I won't take long, he said, attempting to pass by the dragon again. Fury, incredulous grunt. Frustrated with Izuku's lack of understanding, Fury let out a sigh through his nostrils, about to make a decision on his own. Before Izuku could react, the dragon grabbed the hood of the boy's sweatshirt with his teeth, and with a powerful flap of his wings, took off, flying off with Izuku in tow. Insert soundtrack, Test Drive, John Powell. As Fury took flight, holding Izuku by the hoodie, the young man felt and saw the ground rapidly recede from beneath his feet and his reach. The wind whipped against his face, and the landscape below became an indistinguishable patchwork, which terrified him. Izuku. Fury, what are you doing? Put me down, he shouted, panic evident in his voice. Fury, determined, ignored Izuku's protests and, with a swift movement of his head, gently launched him into the air, positioning him on his back. Instinctively, Izuku clung to the dragon's neck, his eyes wide as he observed the great height they were at. Izuku. This is crazy, oh my god, let's go down. Please, he pleaded, his voice trembling. Fury. Exasperated grunt. Fury rolled his eyes, letting out a grunt that sounded like frustration, until he began to smile as if he had come up with an idea. Suddenly, the dragon dove abruptly, heading towards the sea. Izuku let out a high-pitched scream, holding on with all his might as the wind roared around them while they descended rapidly. The ocean surface approached quickly, reflecting the sky above like a liquid mirror. At the last moment, Fury spread his wings, leveling the flight and tapping the water's surface with the tips of his claws. They glided gracefully, leaving a trail of white foam behind them. Before Izuku could catch his breath after the long scream, Fury dived into the depths, enveloping them in a world of bubbles, currents, and cold water. Rising quickly, the dragon repeated the maneuver twice more, each dive eliciting nervous screams from Izuku and laughter from Fury. On the third time they broke the surface, the young man, drenched and panting, tried to scold his friend. Izuku. This is not funny, you got that, Fury? His voice faltered as he realized something. As they glided over the water, Izuku saw his reflection next to Fury's, both in perfect harmony. At the same time, he saw where Fury had taken him and what he was offering the young man. The feeling of freedom, the bond between them, it all started to make sense. A shy smile appeared on his face. Izuku, oh my, ho ho ho. Fury let out a satisfied grunt, flapping his wings hard and rising back into the sky. This time, they broke through the clouds, emerging into a sea of white cotton under a blue sky. Izuku couldn't help but let out a genuine laugh, feeling the adrenaline and joy pulse through his veins. Izuku. This is amazing. Fury, I've never felt the wind hit my hair like this, he exclaimed, petting the dragon's head. Suddenly, a distant sound caught his attention. Looking ahead, Izuku saw a commercial plane rapidly approaching. Izuku. Fury. Look out, plane ahead, he shouted, terrified. Fury reacted instantly, banking to the left and narrowly avoiding the aircraft. However, The sharp maneuver caused Izuku to lose his balance. With a scream, he slid across the wet scales and began to fall. Izuku! Fury! He screamed, panic returning as he saw the ground coming up fast. The dragon, feeling the absence of Izuku's weight, looked down and saw him falling quickly toward the ground. Seeing this, Fury dove toward his falling friend. The wind roared in Izuku's ears, and the world below him was coming up too fast, especially the treetops of the forest, which only added to his terror. But in the midst of the chaos, he heard Fury's roar and saw him approaching with a confident look. Izuku, Fury? He whispered, extending his hand. Fury. Determined roar with one last thrust, Fury reached Izuku, allowing the young man to grab tightly onto his neck. Without wasting any time, the dragon spread his wings, slowing their fall and skillfully avoiding the approaching trees. Izuku, to the right. Done and done, Fury heard and did what Izuku said, narrowly dodging a tree ahead of them. However, there were more obstacles ahead, and that made Izuku narrow his eyes. Izuku, go left, done and done. Fury followed the command. Right again, down, up, left, right, a little lower up, he directed, and the dragon obeyed, making them both pass between trunks and branches at high speed with great style. Go higher. Fury followed the commands precisely, rising and falling as needed, until they finally broke through the tree line, soaring back into the open sky. Above the clouds, they continued flying, with Izuku quite out of breath and Fury relieved. Looking back, after noticing everything they had just done, a laugh escaped Izuku's lips, growing into a full-blown chuckle. Fury joined in with a joyful roar, sharing in the euphoria of the moment. Izuku! OHYH! He yelled in euphoria with his hands raised. Art made by Christian Martins 569. If you have any questions, please contact Eduardo Maltamarinho. Art made by Christian Martins 569. If you have any questions, please contact Eduardo Maltamarinho. As for Fury, he responded by shooting a burst of fire into the air, creating a luminous display against the blue sky. Izuku, oh no, give me a brie, he said, incredulous at what Fury had just done, while the remnants of Fury's fire slowly approached them, especially Izuku. End of soundtrack. Insert soundtrack. Blood Oath, Benjamin Wallfish. Minutes later, Fury gracefully landed on the forest floor, near the lake where they always meet, his large wings beating softly to slow down the flight. Izuku dismounted from the dragon's back, still feeling his heart race from the experience. Izuku, wow, that was amazing. Fury, he exclaimed, his eyes shining with excitement. No, seriously, that was incredible, especially when I fell when that plane showed up, and then you came and saved me. He laughed nervously, still processing the adrenaline. And then we were dodging the trees, and I gotta say, you're really good at flying. Fury, I almost got dizzy back there. Fury let out a satisfied grunt, shaking his head as if proud of himself. Izuku, Fury, thank you for letting me fly with you. He placed a hand on his chest as a sign of gratitude. I really needed that, seriously. I didn't expect flying like that to make me. He stopped talking as he finally noticed something. He noticed that Fury was flying without showing any signs of pain. Izuku, you can fly again? He asked, stepping closer to the dragon and gently petting his head. That's great. Buddy, you can fly again, that's great. Although happy for his friend's recovery, a shadow of concern crossed Izuku's face. He feared that now that Fury was recovered, the dragon might decide to return to his family, his home, or go his own way. In other words, leave Izuku behind. Fury, confused grunt. Izuku, I understand, Fury, he said, forcing a smile. You have your own life and maybe you need to go. He slowly moved away, picking up his backpack from the ground. Before leaving, he turned to Fury one last time. Izuku, take care, Fury, he said with a melancholic smile. Don't forget me, okay? With a sigh, Izuku began to walk away, his steps slow and hesitant. He didn't want to, but he knew something like this could happen, and the faster it happened, the better. Fury, watching Izuku walk away, felt a pang of sadness. He looked up at the sky, his eyes reflecting a distant and melancholic gaze. Then, the creature looked back at Izuku, who was walking away with his head down. Remembering the past 2 months when Fury had been cared for, fed, and welcomed by Izuku, the dragon seemed to have made a decision. Fury. Soft grunt with a low grunt, Fury approached Izuku, catching his attention. Izuku turned, surprised to see Fury in front of him. Izuku, Fury? What are you doing? He asked, confused. What happened? Fury didn't need to respond with words or even a simple grunt, but with a loving gesture. He placed his head on Izuku's right hand, gently lifting it until it was above his snout. Once this was done, Fury did something that left Izuku deeply moved. The dragon closed his eyes, conveying not only a sense of peace and trust, but also a sound that resembled purring. The dragon closed his eyes, conveying not only a sense of peace and trust, but also a sound that resembled purring. Izuku, touched by the gesture, felt 2 tears sliding down his face. He gently stroked Fury's snout, realizing that the dragon had made a choice. He chose to stay by his side. Izuku, Fury. He whispered, his voice choking up. I don't know what Hiccup's expectations were with these dragons, how he met them and what his story with them was and how it ended. But one thing I know, they are amazing, said the Izuku narrator while our Izuku remained with his hand on Fury's snout. My best friend is truly amazing. Izuku. Thank you, my friend. Fury kept his eyes closed, allowing Izuku's hand to remain on his snout. Together, they stayed like that for a long moment, sharing a comfortable silence and a deep connection. Time: 9:20 p.m. Toshinori sat in his favorite armchair in the living room, his gaze fixed on the television. The TV displayed a lively snack commercial, highlighting a new limited edition featuring collectible stickers of famous heroes. Get your pack now and collect the newest stickers of your favorite heroes. We have the Ninja Hero, Edgeshot the Rabbit Hero, Mirko the Dragon Hero, Ryukyu, and the limited editions of Japan's top 3 heroes Hawks, Endeavor, and our symbol of peace, All Might. The narrator enthusiastically announced the collectible stickers of the mentioned heroes, especially the one of All Might, showing children excitedly opening packs and finding the gold-bordered image of the symbol of peace in heroic poses. With his elbows resting on his knees and his hands clasped in front of his face, his eyes might have been focused on the screen, but his mind was elsewhere. He didn't even blink at the sight of his own animated image in the commercial, smiling exaggeratedly with fists raised in a display of bravery. That wasn't how he felt now. The glow of the TV reflected in his tired and sorrowful eyes, while a tightening sensation in his chest grew inside him. He let out a heavy sigh, running a hand over his face. And the reason he felt this way? It was what he discovered last week. Flashback. Principal Nizu's office. The office door swung open abruptly. All Might entered hastily, his eyes wide, his expression filled with confusion and disbelief. All Might, Principal Nizu, what is the meaning of this? His voice, usually firm, trembled slightly. Nizu, what exactly? The small principal, who was calmly reviewing documents at his desk, looked up, unfazed by the sudden entrance. All Might, I saw the list of students in the hero course, but my son. He's not on it, he said, holding up 2 papers. I don't understand. I saw the exam results. He scored enough points to enter the hero course. Didn't he? Nizu remained silent for a moment before closing his eyes and letting out a small sigh. Nizu, so you didn't know? Insert soundtrack. The board Shack Mickle Dana. All Might. What does that mean? Nizu. Indeed, your son earned enough points to enter the hero course. However, the principal paused, studying the hero's expression as he listened intently, before continuing. It turns out that he chose this himself, Toshinori. All Might blinked, feeling as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. All Might, what? Nizu, yes. He came to me. He looked downcast and he told me that it no longer made sense for someone like him to try, that it was foolish of him to want to be in the hero course. The principal's tone wasn't accusatory, but there was a certain sadness in his voice. According to his own words, he said he was accepting reality. Tashinori's heart clenched at those words. Accepting reality, that was exactly what he had told his son that day. All Might, death, and this doesn't make sense, he murmured, placing a hand on his head and taking a step back. He always wanted to be a hero. Nizu, yes, it doesn't make sense at all. The comment from UA's headmaster drew All Might's attention. The hero, now wearing a neutral expression, stared at the small principal, who tilted his head slightly forward. Tashinori, don't tell me you had something to do with this decision? The question felt like a punch to the gut, both that day and still now. His doubts, his fears, and the answer his own fear had given his son that day led to his son's decision to give up. End of flashback. Back in the present, Tashinori blinked as he recalled his conversation with Nizu. His chest rose and fell heavily, as if a weight was pressing against his lungs. He ran a hand through his already slightly disheveled blonde hair, the guilt still lingering, weighing on him. Then he leaned to the side and picked up his phone from the small table next to the couch. As soon as the screen lit up, it revealed the last recorded messages between him and Izuku. The last message he had sent his son was on the day of the entrance exam. Good luck, son. And after that, nothing. No response. And I'm not just talking about text messages. I mean the time that passed since that day. The atmosphere inside that house had not been the same since the harsh words he said to Izuku. And the only things Izuku would say to his father were something like, I'm heading out, bye. Or excuse me, I'm going to see a friend. Or simply, he left without saying anything. Tashinori wanted to spend time with his son, talk to him, and try to fix the tension between them, but how could he fix such a deep wound that he himself had caused? This depressing atmosphere in the house. It was all his fault. If he had said something different that day, if he had shown some support, if he had been a better father, if he had given his son one for all. He hesitated, his fingers hovering over the phone keyboard. He wanted to say something. He wanted to ask how Izuku was doing, if he was coming home soon, or at the very least, apologize right then and there. He wanted to say something. Anything like, Izuku, can we talk? Son, how are you? Please tell me you're okay. So many words, yet none felt right. None felt worthy. He squeezed his eyes shut, closing the phone screen with a heavy sigh. Before he could sink further into his guilt, something caught his attention. End of soundtrack. Voices. Familiar voices outside the house, making Tashinori frown as he got up from the armchair. He turned toward the front door, his curiosity piqued upon hearing his son's voice and a girl's? It didn't take long for him to quietly walk to the living room window. The curtains were drawn, but he parted them slightly with his fingers, just enough to see without being noticed. Insert soundtrack. The Cove, John Powell. Outside, illuminated by the street lamp, Izuku and Ochako were walking together, approaching the house's front door, still dressed in their UA uniforms, their backpacks slung over their shoulders. The young man wore an expression of surprise and disbelief, while Ochako smiled slightly, gesturing as she animatedly told a story. Ochako. And then, Aizawa-sensei just said that if anyone came in last place, they'd be expelled on the spot, she said, gesturing with her hands and shaking her head. You should have seen our faces, everyone froze instantly. Izuku. Expulsion on the first day? His eyes widened, shoulders rising in shock. He really said that? But why would he do something like that on the first day? Ochako, to test our potential, according to him. She sighed, recalling the experience. I think he wanted to see how we'd handle the pressure. And let me tell you something. It worked. I've never pushed myself so hard in my life. She let out a breath, a tired but satisfied smile playing on her lips, only to find out in the end that it was all a lie. He just wanted us to take the test seriously. Tashinori. So that's why Class 1A wasn't at the entrance ceremony. He narrowed his eyes, processing the information. Aizawa had expelled an entire class in the past because he believed they had no potential. The fact that he threatened to do the same but In the end, didn't expel anyone was unusual. Izuku blinked a few times, trying to process the information. Izuku, wait, so no one got expelled? Chaco, no, but there was this guy. Mineta, I think. Poor thing, he came in last and started crying desperately, saying he didn't want to be expelled before dating a girl. Izuku, PF, PF, PFFFFFF. Izuku was silent for a second before letting out a surprised giggle. Ochako joined him, covering her mouth to muffle her laughter. No, that has to be a joke. Ochako. It's true, she nodded, laughing even more. You should have seen his face, the poor guy nearly turned white. PFFF ha ha ha. PFFF ha ha ha. Toshinori, still peeking through the curtain, watched everything closely. His eyes drifted between Izuku's amused expression and the girl's bright smile. He could barely remember the last time he saw his son like this, talking so freely with someone, laughing so spontaneously. As he reflected on this, he realized their conversation was coming to an end. Chaco, so, same time tomorrow? Izuku, yeah. And this time, I promise I'll wait for you. He smiled slightly. Chaco, great, the girl seemed pleased with that. And I hope that applies to the morning too. Izuku, oh, of course that'll happen too. Ochako smiled, satisfied, ready to turn and leave, but before she could take a step, Izuku called her name. Izuku, Uraraka? She stopped and looked back, curious. Izuku, I wanted to thank you again for, He lowered his gaze for a second, seeming to gather courage before continuing. For what you said back there. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. That I can be a hero. He spoke sincerely, looking her in the eyes. It meant a lot to me. Ochako's eyes softened, her gentle gaze reflecting the dim street lamp light, and a warm smile formed on her lips. Ochako, what I said was the absolute truth, Yagi. You already are. Her words were spoken so naturally that he felt warmth spread through his chest, the heat rising to his face as he realized how beautiful she looked under the soft glow of the streetlights. He tried to respond, but nothing came out. He just nodded with a sheepish smile, while Ochako gave him one last smile before stepping into the house next door. Ochako, good night, Yagi. That was all she said before entering. Toshinori, still watching from behind the curtain, felt his stomach twist. He closed his eyes for a moment, gripping the fabric between his fingers. He had wanted so badly to hear those words, and yet, it hadn't been from him, his own father, that Izuku heard them. End of soundtrack. Outside, Izuku stood still for a moment, staring at Ochako's door. When it finally closed behind her, he let out a deep sigh, the small, goofy smile still lingering on his lips. Still lost in his thoughts, he finally turned to open the door to his own home. As soon as he stepped inside, he took off his shoes and walked further in, until he abruptly stopped at the sight of his father still standing by the window. Their eyes met. Toshinori remained there, frozen, his gaze lost in the direction of his son. The silence between them felt as heavy as gravity itself. Izuku, still at the entrance, held his father's gaze, showing little emotion but refusing to look away. For a moment, neither of them spoke, simply studying each other in the midst of the uncomfortable quiet. Toshinori, hello, son. He forced a small smile, attempting to sound casual. Izuku, hey. His response was short, neutral. What are you doing? Toshinori cleared his throat, glancing away for a moment before nodding toward the window. Toshinori, I heard your voice outside. I was curious about who you were talking to. He hesitated for a second before continuing. Young Uraraka seems like a nice girl. It's good to see that you two get along. Izuku, yeah, she is. She was telling me about her first day in the hero course.